The crystal chandeliers cast cold light across the mahogany conference table, their reflections fragmenting in the polished surface like broken promises. Jack Harlow adjusted his tie, the silk fabric feeling like a noose against his combat-trained neck. The top floor boardroom of Monarch Holdings towered 47 stories above Manhattan, its glass and steel facade reflecting the ambitions and betrayals that played out within. 6 months of civilian clothes hadn't erased the hyper-vigilance that kept him alive through 3 tours with SEAL Team 6. Something was wrong. His eyes swept the room methodically the same way he had once cleared buildings in Kandahar. The security guard by the east door wore an earpiece with a Motorola connector, but Monarch's standard issue was Blackwell. The guard's stance was all wrong, too weight forward on the balls of his feet, hand positioned for quick draw, rather than the relaxed posture of corporate security. These weren't professionals trained to de-escalate. They were predators waiting to strike. Jack's gaze lingered on the security cameras. One by one, their red recording lights blinked out, dying in sequence like stars at dawn. His pulse remained steady. Elevated threat conditions were familiar territory. What sent ice through his veins was knowing his 7-year-old daughter Lily was 17 floors below in the building's childcare center. 3 days into a temporary security consultant position, and Jack had walked into something far more dangerous than a corporate power struggle. But he'd made a promise after Afghanistan: never again would he arrive too late when someone needed protection. The elevator ride that morning had been filled with Lily's chatter about her new book on marine biology. She'd inherited her mother's quick mind and curiosity. 2 years since the car accident that took Sarah, and sometimes looking at Lily still felt like staring at a ghost. The same blonde curls, the same dimple, when she smiled. Now those curls were bobbing 17 floors below, while something dangerous unfolded in the boardroom above. The childcare center had been the deciding factor in taking this job. Monarch Holdings offered full-day care for employees' children, a luxury for a single father juggling work and parenthood. The director, Ms. Perkins, ran a tight ship with the efficiency of a military operation and the warmth of a grandmother's kitchen. Lily had taken to it immediately, especially the reading corner with its ocean-themed beanbags. "Daddy, will you be able to have lunch with me today?" Lily had asked that morning, her small backpack festooned with orca whale keychains. Ms. Perkins said parents can eat with us on Wednesdays. Jack had crouched down, meeting her eyes. "I've got an important meeting, sweetheart, but I'll try to come down after." The guilt was familiar now, a constant companion since becoming both mother and father to his daughter. He'd promised himself this civilian security gig would mean more stability than his SEAL days, but promises were proving harder to keep than he'd expected. "It's okay if you can't," Lily had replied with the practiced understanding of a child who'd grown up too fast. "I'll tell you about the octopus book later." Now watching the security cameras go dark one by one, Jack's jaw tightened. He hadn't taken this job just for the childcare. His former teammate, Ryan Matthews, now with the FBI's cyber division, had flagged concerning data breaches at Monarch Holdings. "Something big is happening there, Jack. We need eyes inside someone who can spot trouble before it hits the fan. Official channels are too slow." As Jack scanned the room, he noted the key players taking their seats. Maxwell Reed sat directly across from the CEO's empty chair, his steel gray suit matching the cold calculation in his eyes. At 40, Reed carried himself with the arrogance of old money and new ambition. As Monarch's second-largest shareholder, he'd made no secret of his belief that he should be running the company instead of Elaine Monarch. Dennis Palmer, the company's legal counsel, shuffled papers with practiced nervousness. His thinning hair and rumpled appearance concealed a mind that had found every loophole in corporate governance for whoever paid the highest retainer. Today he sat closer to Reed than his assigned seat, a small detail that spoke volumes. The boardroom doors opened with purpose and conversation died as Elaine Monarch entered. At 34, she commanded attention without asking for it. Her Navy business suit was armor, her stride precise and measured. Jack had reviewed her file: MIT engineering degree, Stanford MBA, took over the company after her father's death 6 years ago, transformed a legacy energy corporation into a clean tech pioneer against the wishes of half her board, made enemies of oil barons and tech billionaires alike. What the file hadn't captured was the quiet intensity that surrounded her like a force field. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a simple knot, her only jewelry, a platinum watch that had belonged to her father. No wedding ring, no visible vulnerabilities. Jack had been observing her for 3 days from a professional distance. She worked 18-hour days, knew the names of janitors and executives alike, and carried the weight of a multi-billion-dollar company without visible strain. But there was something else beneath the polished exterior, a wariness in how she held herself like someone who'd learned the hard way not to trust easily. He recognized that particular scar because he carried the same one. "Good morning." Elaine's voice cut through the murmurs, neither cold nor warm, just authoritative. "I understand this emergency meeting was called to address concerns about the Palmer project launch. I'll remind everyone that this boardroom operates under Monarch Holdings' confidentiality protocols." Her eyes swept the room, pausing briefly on Jack before continuing. He'd been introduced as a temporary security consultant brought in to assess vulnerabilities before the Palmer project launch. What she didn't know was that he was also searching for whoever had been funneling proprietary data to competitors. Maxwell Reed cleared his throat, straightening papers that didn't need straightening. "Before we begin, I'd like to question the presence of temporary staff at a confidential board meeting." His gaze fixed on Jack with the thinly veiled contempt the wealthy often reserved for those they considered hired help. "Mr. Harlow is conducting a comprehensive security assessment of all executive functions," Elaine replied without hesitation. Given the sensitive nature of the Palmer project, his insights on potential vulnerabilities are relevant to today's discussion. Jack maintained a neutral expression. His resume listed his military background and security expertise, but not the real reason he was there. The boardroom politics were just background noise to his true mission, identifying who was stealing Monarch's breakthrough solar energy storage technology. The Palmer project represented the holy grail of renewable energy, a battery system that could store solar energy at unprecedented efficiency, making fossil fuels economically obsolete. The patents alone were worth billions, and the global impact would be measured in trillions, which made it a prime target for corporate espionage. "Very well." Reed's lip curled slightly. "Though I question the timing given the legal complications that have arisen." Dennis Palmer shuffled forward, adjusting his glasses. "Yes. Well, as I was explaining in my memo, we've identified significant regulatory concerns with the Palmer project timeline. There are liability issues that require immediate action." Jack watched Elaine's face. Not a flicker of surprise. She'd been expecting this. "Interesting, Dennis, considering the legal department cleared all regulatory hurdles last month." Her voice remained level, but Jack noticed her right hand, the one below table level, had clenched slightly. "Perhaps you could explain what's changed since your team's written approval on the 15th. Palmer's eyes darted to Reed so quickly most would miss it, but Jack wasn't most people. The room's tension shifted, becoming something sharper. "New information has come to light regarding potential patent infringement claims." Palmer pushed a thick document across the table. "This emergency resolution would temporarily pause the project while we conduct additional due diligence." Jack recognized the play. Create a crisis offer, a solution that puts you in control. He'd seen warlords use the same tactics in Afghanistan, just with less expensive suits and more obvious weapons. Elaine took the document but didn't open it. And the urgency is such that proper notice to all board members was impossible. Elizabeth and James are attending virtually because they're currently on different continents. As if on cue, the large display screens flickered to life, showing two board members calling in. Elizabeth Reynolds, silver-haired and sharp-eyed at 60, had been with the company since before Elaine was born. James Chen, 45, joined from a Tokyo hotel room, despite it being 2 a.m. local time. "The timing is unfortunate," Reed interjected smoothly, "but markets wait for no one. Our sources indicate a competitor may announce similar technology within days. We must protect shareholder value." Jack's focus shifted to the security guards. 3 more had entered, positioning themselves at strategic points around the room. Their body language had changed, becoming more alert, hands closer to their sides. Someone had given a signal. The room's smart glass windows activated, turning opaque. The electronic door locks engaged with soft clicks that might have been missed if not for the sudden silence that followed. Jack tensed. The playbook was becoming clear. Isolate control. Execute. Elaine must have sensed it too. Her eyes met Jack's briefly, a silent question passing between them. He gave an imperceptible nod, shifting his weight to allow quicker movement if needed. I find it concerning that our security protocols have been modified without my authorization. Elaine's voice remained steady as she gestured toward the darkened cameras. Perhaps Mr. Harlow could shed some light on these technical difficulties. All eyes turned to Jack. The guards tensed. This wasn't how he planned to reveal his hand, but plans rarely survive first contact, a lesson learned in war zones that applied equally to boardrooms. The cameras have been disabled through the building's maintenance back door. Jack rose slowly, keeping his movements deliberate. And at least 4 of these security personnel aren't Monarch employees. Their credentials wouldn't withstand basic verification. Reed's expression hardened. That's an outrageous claim from a temporary consultant who has no authority. I also find it interesting, Jack continued as if Reed hadn't spoken, that someone accessed the R&D servers at 2:17 this morning, downloading the complete Palmer project specifications. The access came from a device registered to legal department credentials. Dennis Palmer's face drained of color. Elizabeth Reynolds leaned forward in her video feed, eyes narrowing. Dennis, is this true? Palmer stammered something about security testing and legal review requirements, but the damage was done. Jack could see the realization rippling through the room. This wasn't a normal power play. This was something much worse. The night before, Jack had been working late, reviewing security logs with Kevin Chen, Monarch's lead IT specialist. Kevin was 28, brilliant with code, and perpetually fueled by energy drinks and paranoia about system vulnerabilities. He'd flagged unusual access patterns over the past month. Look at this, Kevin had pointed to anomalies in the server logs. Someone's been exploring the network architecture, testing boundaries. They started with non-sensitive systems, then gradually worked toward the R&D servers. It's methodical, professional. An inside job? Jack had asked, though he already suspected the answer. Kevin nodded, his expression grim. Has to be. These credentials are legitimate, but the pattern doesn't match normal work habits. It's like watching someone try on someone else's skin. The access is technically correct, but behaviorally wrong. They'd set up alerts for any unusual activity, particularly around the Palmer project data. Jack hadn't expected something so brazen as a complete download, but it confirmed his suspicions. The attack was accelerating. Now standing in the boardroom, Jack watched Reed's carefully constructed plan begin to unravel. But dangerous people were most dangerous when cornered. This is absurd, Reed recovered, his voice hardening. We're here to discuss legitimate business concerns, not indulge in security theater. Mr. Harlow is clearly overstepping his role. One of the guards moved toward the door, hand touching his earpiece. Jack noted the movement, calculating angles and timing. If this turned physical, he needed to be between any threat and Elaine. I think we should verify Mr. Harlow's claims immediately, Elizabeth Reynolds said from the screen. Her authority carried even through video. James, are you able to access the security systems remotely? James Chen was already typing. I'm locked out of the main security feed, but I can access the backup systems. Give me a moment. Reed's jaw tightened. He exchanged glances with Palmer, who was sweating visibly now. Jack recognized the silent communication of conspirators whose plan was falling apart. While Mr. Chen investigates, perhaps we should return to the agenda. Reed attempted his tone, falsely conciliatory. The resolution before us is time-sensitive. Elaine opened the document for the first time, scanning its contents with practiced efficiency. Her expression revealed nothing, but Jack noticed her posture straighten. Whatever she'd found had confirmed something. This isn't a resolution to pause the project, she said finally, her voice quiet but carrying clearly across the room. This is a transfer of executive authority. It would remove me as CEO and install an emergency management committee headed by you, Maxwell. The room went still. Several board members exchanged shocked glances. This was beyond a corporate maneuver. This was a coup. The company faces unprecedented risks, Reed replied smoothly. The board has a fiduciary responsibility to ensure stable leadership through this critical period. By bypassing proper governance procedures and using falsified security concerns, Elaine's composure was remarkable. That seems less like fiduciary responsibility and more like opportunistic theft. Jack kept his focus split between Reed and the security guards, who were growing increasingly agitated as the confrontation escalated. The guard by the main door was receiving instructions through his earpiece, his expression hardening. Whatever was coming would happen soon. James Chen's voice cut through the tension. I've accessed the backup security protocol. Mr. Harlow is correct. Someone has systematically disabled the primary security systems throughout the executive floor, and the guards currently in the boardroom aren't registered in our employee database. Reed's carefully controlled facade cracked. This is a waste of time. The resolution requires immediate action. It requires a legitimate vote. Elizabeth Reynolds interrupted, her voice steel. And I, for one, will not vote on anything until we understand why unauthorized personnel have locked down this meeting and why our legal counsel was accessing restricted data in the middle of the night. The guard by the door made his move, pulling a device from his pocket and activating it. The video screens went black. Elizabeth and James disappeared, cut off from the meeting. I'm afraid we've had a communications failure, Reed announced, all pretense gone from his voice. Now, Ms. Monarch, I suggest you sign the resolution. The longer this takes, the more complicated things become. Jack had seen enough. The threat was clear, the hostility undisguised. He moved with deliberate calm, positioning himself beside Elaine's chair. I suggest everyone take a breath and consider their next move very carefully. Reed's laugh held no humor. And what exactly do you think you are going to do, Mr. Harlow? You're one man against a security team. Former Navy SEAL against untrained thugs in rented uniforms, Jack corrected mildly. But more importantly, I'm someone who's already alerted actual security to the situation. Sarah Davis has initiated building lockdown protocols focusing on protecting key areas like the child care center. The mention of Sarah Davis changed the atmosphere instantly. As Monarch's senior security director and wife of Jack's former SEAL teammate, she had been his first contact upon taking the consulting job. What Reed didn't know was that Sarah had been quietly investigating security anomalies for weeks, building a case, but lacking the smoking gun they now had. Reed's expression flickered at the mention of the child care center, a micro-expression of calculation that sent warning bells ringing in Jack's mind. The guard nearest Reed touched his earpiece again, listening, then gave a slight nod. Reed's smile returned, colder than before. He reached for his phone, swiping to an image that made Jack's blood freeze. It showed Lily in the child care center, taken from an angle that suggested surveillance from inside the room. Accidents happen in buildings every day. Reed said, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried more menace than any shout. Tragic accidents, especially to children who wander where they shouldn't. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jack's hands clenched into fists, every combat instinct screaming to neutralize the threat. But his tactical mind recognized the trap. Any violence now would undermine everything, potentially letting Reed's conspirators escape while Jack was arrested for assault. The mission parameters had changed. This was no longer just about stopping corporate espionage. It was about protecting his daughter from immediate danger. Elaine's response was swift and unexpected. She pulled out her personal phone, dialing a number from memory. Draw initiates Sparrow protocol for the third-floor child care center. Priority Alpha authorization Monarch 773. Jack knew Sparrow protocol wasn't standard security terminology. This was something personal between Elaine and Sarah, a contingency they'd planned for situations like this. Reed's expression shifted from confidence to confusion. What are you doing? Ensuring that your leverage disappears, Elaine replied evenly, meeting his gaze without flinching. Sparrow protocol means the child care center is now in full lockdown with Sarah's most trusted team. Your people won't get within 50 feet of any child in this building. For the first time, uncertainty flashed across Reed's face. Jack felt a surge of something unexpected, admiration for the CEO's foresight and courage under pressure. She'd anticipated threats might extend to the vulnerable and had planned accordingly. You're bluffing, Reed recovered, though his confidence seemed forced now. Davis doesn't have the authority. Sarah Davis's husband was Michael Davis, Navy SEAL Team 4. Elaine cut him off, her voice quiet but carrying weight that silenced the room. Killed in action 3 years ago. After his death, I established an education fund for their children and ensured she had a position where her skills were valued. She has full emergency authority activated the moment you threatened a child. And the revelation reframed everything Jack thought he knew about Elaine Monarch. This wasn't just a CEO protecting her company, but someone who understood loyalty and sacrifice on a personal level. Reed's threat had backfired, creating an alliance he hadn't anticipated. Jack used the moment of confusion to move subtly closer to the nearest guard, calculating the fastest way to neutralize the man if necessary. Mr. Reed, Elaine continued, her voice carrying new steel, you've just added criminal threatening and conspiracy to harm a minor to your growing list of charges. I believe that triggers the immediate suspension clause in our corporate bylaws, the one stating any board member under criminal investigation is automatically recused pending resolution. Jack saw the opening and took it. There's also the matter of the stop the clock provision, he added, recalling corporate governance details from his briefing. When there's evidence of coercion or threats during a board meeting, any member can invoke immediate suspension of proceedings pending ethics review. I invoke that provision, came a voice from the end of the table. Vivian Brooks, the company's CFO, had been silent until now, her allegiance unclear. As Chief Financial Officer, I have standing to call for suspension based on potential harm to corporate governance. Reed's carefully constructed plan was collapsing like a house of cards. The other board members, seeing which way the wind was blowing, began distancing themselves from him through their body language and expressions. This is absurd, Reed spat, desperation edging into his voice. Palmer, tell them they can't do this. Dennis Palmer, looking like he might vomit at any moment, shook his head slightly. They actually can. The provision exists specifically for situations involving alleged coercion. Jack's phone vibrated with a text from Sarah. Package secure. 2 unauthorized individuals apprehended attempting to access childcare floor. Metropolitan Police Department en route. Relief washed through him, though he kept his expression neutral. Lily was safe. Now he could focus fully on neutralizing the remaining threat. You know, Jack said conversationally to Reed, deliberately casual to increase the man's unease. People who make threats often forget they're being recorded. He gestured toward the ceiling corners where small secondary cameras, different from the main security cameras, blinked with steady red lights. Reed's eyes widened fractionally. Those are inactive. The primary system is down, Jack confirmed. But Ms. Monarch's private security protocol includes backup recording devices that operate on a separate circuit. Standard procedure for executives who receive death threats, which I understand is a regular occurrence in her position. This was partly bluff. Jack wasn't certain the secondary systems were recording, but the doubt would serve their purpose. Reed's expression confirmed the psychological hit had landed. They also forget, Jack continued, pressing the advantage, that conspiracy charges become federal cases when they cross state lines or involve wire fraud. That shell company you've been communicating with in Delaware that makes this FBI jurisdiction. As if on cue, Reed's phone rang. He checked the screen, his face paling as he saw the caller. His attorney, most likely delivering what was obviously catastrophic news. Jack's assessment was confirmed when Reed hissed into the phone. What do you mean, federal agents? How could they possibly? The boardroom doors burst open. 4 individuals in suits entered with the coordinated precision that screamed federal law enforcement. The lead agent, a woman with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that had seen every possible human deception, held up credentials. Special Agent Rebecca Chen, FBI. Maxwell Reed, Dennis Palmer. We have warrants for your arrest on charges of conspiracy to commit corporate espionage, wire fraud, and interstate transmission of stolen trade secrets. The remaining guards, realizing they were outmatched, raised their hands slowly. One attempted to reach for something in his jacket, but Jack was already there, his hand clamping around the man's wrist with crushing force. I wouldn't, Jack advised quietly, applying precisely the right amount of pressure to a nerve cluster. The man gasped, his knees buckling. Jack relieved him of a taser disguised as a mobile phone, handing it to the nearest FBI agent. As the agents methodically secured the room reading rights and applying handcuffs, Jack turned to Elaine. Her composure had held through the entire confrontation, but now he could see the slight trembling in her hands, not fear, but the aftermath of adrenaline. Are you all right? He asked quietly. His voice pitched for her ears alone. She nodded once, a controlled gesture that matched her public persona, but her eyes told a different story. Relief mingled with anger and something else he couldn't quite identify. Thank you for your intervention, she replied, equally quiet. Though I suspect there's more to your presence here than a routine security consultation. Jack considered his options. His cover was effectively blown, and after what they'd just been through, she deserved the truth. The FBI has been tracking technology theft from several clean energy companies, he explained. When your systems were breached last month, my former teammate at the Bureau asked me to take this consulting job as a way to get eyes inside. The formal investigation couldn't move quickly enough, and they needed someone who could spot the signs of an impending attack. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You were never here to evaluate our security systems. I was, just with a more specific focus than you were told. Jack watched as Reed was escorted from the room, the fallen executive's face a mask of cold fury. I'm sorry for the deception. Elaine's gaze followed Reed, her expression hardening. Don't be. Without you here today, I might have lost my company. She looked back at Jack, her professional mask slipping just enough to reveal genuine emotion. And you might have lost something far more precious. Jack's thoughts immediately went to Lily. The threat was neutralized, but he needed to see her, to hold her, and know with absolute certainty that she was safe. As if reading his mind, Elaine added, Go to your daughter. We can handle the rest of this. Jack nodded gratefully and moved toward the door, but Elaine's voice stopped him. Mr. Harlow, when this is sorted, I'd like to discuss a more permanent position. Monarch Holdings clearly needs security leadership that understands both external and internal threats. The offer was unexpected. Jack had planned to complete this assignment and return to consulting work that allowed him flexible hours for Lily. But something about Monarch Holdings and its CEO had gotten under his skin in just 3 days. I'll think about it, he replied honestly. As he stepped into the hallway, his phone vibrated with another message from Sarah. Lily is asking for you. She's in my office with my team. She's fine, been reading to the younger children to keep them calm. The elevator descent to the security floor gave Jack time to process everything that had happened in less than an hour. A routine security job had become a battleground for corporate control. A father's protective instinct had overcome professional caution, and somehow in the chaos, justice had prevailed. It wasn't the clean victory of military operations where objectives were clear and success measurable. This was messier, more complex, with implications that would ripple through courts and boardrooms for months. But the immediate danger had passed, and that was enough for now. Sarah Davis waited outside her office, her bearing immediately recognizable to Jack. They'd met at military functions when both their spouses were alive, though they'd never served together directly. The recognition was mutual and immediate, two people who understood loss and duty meeting across the divide of their different battles. Jack Harlow, she greeted him with a firm handshake. Mike spoke highly of you. He was one of the best, Jack replied. The familiar weight of survivor's guilt pressing on him. He'd come home from war. Mike hadn't. Thank you for protecting Lily. We take care of our own, Sarah said simply, and anyone who threatens children deserves whatever comes to them. Her expression softened slightly. Your daughter is remarkable. When we initiated lockdown, she immediately started helping with the younger kids, keeping them calm. Said her daddy taught her that being brave means helping others when they're scared. Through the office window, Jack could see Lily sitting on the floor surrounded by a semicircle of younger children. She was holding a picture book about marine life, her animated gestures suggesting she was adding her own embellishments to the story. The sight hit him with unexpected force. This small person who had become his entire world, demonstrating the same protective instincts that had defined his military career. She's had to grow up fast, Jack said quietly. They all do, Sarah replied. And in those 3 words was a shared understanding of what it meant to raise children who had lost a parent, whether to combat or civilian tragedy. The office door opened and Lily spotted him immediately. Her face lit up with pure joy as she carefully closed the book, excused herself from the children with unexpected poise, then launched herself into his arms with all the enthusiasm of a 7-year-old. Daddy, Miss Sarah said there was a security drill, but I knew it wasn't just a drill because you taught me about real emergencies. So I helped keep the little kids calm. Did I do good? Jack held her tight, feeling the weight of what could have been lost if things had gone differently. You did perfect, sweetheart. Over Lily's head, he saw Elaine Monarch appear in the doorway. She had kicked off her heels somewhere, standing in stocking feet that made her seem more human, less corporate, Titan. The navy suit that had been armor in the boardroom now just made her look tired and triumphant in equal measure. Miss Lily, Elaine said, dropping to the child's eye level with natural grace. I heard you were very brave today. Thank you for taking care of the younger children. Lily studied Elaine with the direct gaze children have before social conditioning teaches them to look away. You're the boss lady. Daddy helped you today, didn't he? He's good at helping people. That's what he does. Yes, he did help me, Elaine confirmed, a genuine smile warming her features. Your daddy is a hero, though I suspect you already knew that. He doesn't like being called that, Lily said matter-of-factly. He says heroes are the ones who don't come home. He came home, so he's just daddy. The words hung in the air, profound in their simplicity. Elaine's eyes met Jack's over Lily's head, and in that glance was understanding that transcended their different worlds. They both knew about loss, about sacrifice, about the weight of carrying on when others couldn't. I have something for you, Elaine said to Lily, producing a beautifully illustrated book about ocean exploration from her bag. It's about the deep sea where the bravest explorers go. I thought you might enjoy it. Lily accepted the book with both hands, the way her father had taught her to receive gifts. Thank you, Ms. Elaine. She hesitated, then asked with hopeful uncertainty, will you come read it with us sometime? The question was innocent, but Jack saw Elaine's slight pause, the moment where professional and personal boundaries blurred. I would like that very much, she finally said, and from her tone, Jack believed she meant it. As FBI agents secured the building and police took statements from witnesses, Jack, Lily, and Elaine made their way to the private executive elevator. The lobby was already filling with reporters and law enforcement, the aftermath of corporate conspiracy playing out in real time. The offer stands, Elaine said as they reached the parking level. Director of Corporate Security. But more than that, a chance to build something better, safer, more honest than what we had before. Jack buckled Lily into her booster seat, his movements automatic after years of practice. When he straightened, his decision wasn't fully formed, but the direction was clear. Let's talk details next week, he said. Elaine nodded, understanding the unspoken message. His priority now was his daughter, as it should be. Monday, 9:30 a.m. We'll have coffee. As Jack drove away, Lily, already absorbed in her new ocean book, he caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror of Elaine standing in the garage entrance watching them leave. She looked smaller without the boardroom backdrop, more vulnerable, but also stronger somehow, as if surviving the morning's betrayal had refined something essential within her. The radio was reporting breaking news about Monarch Holdings' corporate espionage, FBI raids, billions in intellectual property, saved from theft. They would never know the full truth, the moment when a father's choice to protect had prevented a tragedy, when 4 simple words had changed the trajectory of multiple lives. Jack reached back to squeeze Lily's knee, their signal that everything was okay. She squeezed back without looking up from her book, already lost in stories of ocean depths and brave explorers. The morning sun broke through the parking garage exit, flooding the car with light that felt like possibility. Behind them, Monarch Holdings stood tall against the Manhattan skyline. Its glass and steel no longer cold, but somehow warmed by the knowledge that within its walls, integrity had won a decisive victory. The company would survive, even thrive. But more importantly, it would do so honestly, protected by people who understood that sometimes the most important battles are fought not for money or power, but for the simple principle that when someone is threatened, when injustice looms, someone must stand up and say what needs to be said. Jack Harlow had spent his adult life training for war, only to find his most important battle in a corporate boardroom. Life had a way of surprising even the most prepared warriors. As the car merged into Manhattan traffic, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the quiet certainty that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Monday morning arrived under slate-gray skies that threatened rain, matching Jack Harlow's cautious mood. The weekend had passed in a blur of FBI debriefings, emergency security protocols, and attempts to maintain normalcy for Lily. Explanations about bad guys at mommy's work had become a practiced art during his SEAL days. Now he found himself crafting similar half-truths about corporate raiders. Monarch Tower's revolving doors whispered as he entered the lobby, security personnel nodding with newfound respect. 3 days earlier, he'd been an outsider. Now he was the man who'd helped thwart the most brazen corporate takeover attempt in recent memory. The weekend news cycle had feasted on the story. Monarch Holdings targeted in corporate espionage plot screamed headlines across financial networks. Details remained classified pending federal investigation, but enough had leaked to paint Maxwell Reed as the villain in a corporate thriller. Stock prices had initially plummeted, then surged as investors recognized the value of technology worth stealing. The executive elevator required new credentials. Jack's temporary badge replaced with permanent security clearance. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders as the doors closed. He hadn't formally accepted Elaine's offer yet, but his presence this morning spoke volumes. 47 floors above Manhattan Monarch's executive suite hummed with tension. Staff moved with purpose, conversations hushed. The aftermath of betrayal lingered like smoke after fire. Trust once broken couldn't be repaired with a single victory. Jack? Sarah Davis approached from the Security Command Center, tablet in hand. Dark circles beneath her eyes suggested she'd barely slept since Friday's events. The teams assembled in Conference Room B. Kevin's discovered something you need to see. The conference room bore little resemblance to the boardroom where Friday's confrontation had unfolded. Utilitarian and windowless, its walls lined with security monitors, it served as command central for Monarch's newly formed crisis team. Kevin Chen hunched over 3 laptops, fingers flying across keyboards with practiced efficiency. His usual energy drink collection had doubled, suggesting an all-weekend coding marathon. I've been backtracing the intrusion points, Kevin began without preamble as Jack entered. The breach goes deeper than we thought. Reed wasn't working alone. The monitors displayed network diagrams, red lines highlighting unauthorized access paths through Monarch systems. Kevin pulled up server logs, sections highlighted in alarming crimson. See these access timestamps? Multiple entry points, different credentials, but synchronized timing. This was coordinated across departments. Jack studied the data, the familiar coldness of betrayal settling in his gut. How many insiders are we looking at? At least 3, maybe 4. Kevin enlarged one section of data. Legal department credentials we know came from Palmer, but there's also someone in finance, someone in operations, and these admin-level accesses that could only come from executive support staff. Sarah crossed her arms, military posture betraying her tension. Someone close to Elaine. The implications hung heavy. Not just corporate espionage, but personal betrayal. Someone Elaine trusted had sold her out. Where is she now? Jack asked. Emergency board meeting. Sarah checked her watch. Damage control with the remaining members. Elizabeth Reynolds flew in from London last night to lead the restructuring. The door opened as if on cue. Elaine entered, followed by an elegant, silver-haired woman whose bearing suggested authority earned through decades of experience. Elizabeth Reynolds carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had broken glass ceilings before the term existed. Mr. Harlow. Elizabeth extended her hand. Her grip was firm, her gaze evaluative. I understand we owe Friday's resolution largely to your intervention. The board has authorized me to offer you any resources necessary to secure our company. Jack accepted the handshake, recognizing the weight of trust being extended. We've identified additional security concerns. Kevin's found evidence of multiple insider threats still active within the organization. Elaine's expression remained composed, but Jack caught the momentary tightening around her eyes. Another betrayal, another knife in the back. Yet she remained standing, shoulders straight. Show me, she said simply. Kevin walked them through his findings, technical jargon simplified for non-specialists. The attack pattern revealed a sophisticated operation targeting not just the Palmer Project technology, but Monarch's entire corporate structure. They weren't just stealing technology. Kevin highlighted financial records showing subtle irregularities. They were positioning for a complete hostile takeover. These transactions would have devalued key assets, making the company vulnerable to acquisition at a fraction of its worth. Elizabeth's expression hardened. Atlas Global. They've been circling us for years. Jack had researched Atlas during the weekend. A multinational energy conglomerate with tentacles in oil, gas, and coal. They had actively fought against renewable energy advancements. The Palmer Project represented an existential threat to their business model. Reed was their point man, Elizabeth continued, but clearly not their only asset. We need to identify everyone involved before they can regroup. Elaine had been silent, absorbing the information with the detachment of a surgeon evaluating a particularly complex case. Now she turned to Jack. You haven't officially accepted my offer yet, but I need an answer today. Monarch needs leadership that understands both external and internal threats. The unspoken question hung between them. Was he in or out? Jack thought of Lily, of promises made about stability and safety. He thought of war zones halfway across the world of battles fought for abstractions like freedom and democracy. Here was a different kind of war fought in boardrooms and server rooms, but with stakes just as high. I'll need complete authority over security operations, Jack replied. No exceptions, no corporate politics, no compromised access points, and a schedule that accommodates my daughter's needs. Elaine and Elizabeth exchanged glances. A silent communication passed between them, decades of corporate experience weighing against immediate security needs. Done, Elaine said finally. I'll have HR prepare the paperwork immediately. Elizabeth nodded her approval. I'll ensure the board understands this is non-negotiable. Security supersedes conventional reporting structures until this crisis is contained. With that, Jack Harlow became Monarch Holdings' Director of Corporate Security. The transition from consultant to executive happened with the swift decisiveness that crisis demanded. By noon, he had an office adjacent to both Elaine's suite and Sarah's Security Operations Center, bridging the gap between executive leadership and tactical response. His first official act was ordering a complete lockdown of all sensitive systems. Compartmentalization protocols. He instructed Kevin and the IT security team. No one accesses anything beyond their immediate needs. Every request gets logged, verified, and monitored in real time. The measures weren't popular. Department heads protested the restrictions, middle managers complained about efficiency impacts, and even board members balked at new verification requirements. Jack weathered the objections with the impassive resolve of someone who had faced far worse than corporate annoyance. These protocols remain in place until every insider threat is identified and neutralized. He informed the executive committee that afternoon, the alternative is another breach that could destroy the company entirely. By late afternoon, the new security measures had already yielded results. Kevin appeared at Jack's office door, tablet clutched like a lifeline. We've got something. The finance access came from Vivian Brooks' credentials, but the usage pattern doesn't match her regular behavior. Vivian Brooks, the CFO who had sided with Elaine during Friday's confrontation, invoking the stop-the-clock provision that helped derail Reed's takeover attempt. Either her credentials had been compromised or her apparent alliance had been the perfect cover. Where is she now? Jack asked. In her office, scheduled meetings until 6. Keep monitoring, don't alert her. Jack rose from his desk. And pull everything you can find on her communications with Reed over the past 3 months. As Jack headed toward the executive wing, his phone vibrated. A text from Lily's after-school program. Ms. Monarch visited today, brought special ocean books for Marine Science Week. Lily very excited. Hope that's okay. Jack paused mid-stride. Elaine had visited the childcare center. The gesture was unexpected, especially given the crisis engulfing the company. Something about it touched him in ways he wasn't prepared to examine. He texted back a quick affirmative, then continued toward Vivian Brooks' office. The CFO's domain occupied prime corner real estate with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Manhattan. Vivian herself presented the polished image of financial authority, tailored charcoal suit, silver-streaked, dark hair, cut in a precise bob, reading glasses perched on a chain around her neck. She looked up as Jack entered, her expression neutral but evaluative. Mr. Harlow, I was wondering when you'd make your way to finance. Your security protocols have my analysts working overtime to comply. Jack closed the door behind him, noting the subtle shift in her posture. That's the point of compartmentalization. Makes everyone work a little harder to access what they need. Separates convenience from necessity. Efficient operations require smooth information flow. Vivian countered, removing her glasses. Security and functionality need to balance. Balance becomes a luxury during active security breaches. Jack remained standing, deliberately positioning himself between Vivian and the door, especially when those breaches originate from executive credentials. The faintest flicker crossed Vivian's expression, not guilt, but calculation. She was measuring responses, weighing options. Jack recognized the look from interrogations in dusty rooms halfway around the world. People weighing lies against truth, calculating which offered the better chance of survival. Vivian leaned back slightly. If you're implying my systems have been compromised, I'd appreciate specific details so my team can address vulnerabilities. Your credentials accessed R&D servers at 3:42 a.m. last Tuesday, again at 2:17 a.m. Thursday, and your encryption keys were used to extract financial modeling data for the Palmer project on 3 separate occasions. Jack watched her face carefully. Either you keep vampire hours or someone's using your access without authorization. My credentials are stored in a secure password manager, Vivian replied without hesitation. I change authentication monthly and use two-factor verification for all sensitive systems, which makes the breach all the more concerning. Vivian's eyes narrowed slightly. You think I'm working with Reed? I think someone with your access level extracted data that nearly destroyed this company, Jack corrected. What I don't know yet is whether it was you or someone impersonating you. The CFO stood matching Jack's direct approach. I've been with Monarch for 15 years, Mr. Harlow. I helped Arthur Monarch build this company's financial structure, and I supported Elaine when half the board thought a 34-year-old woman couldn't lead a multi-billion-dollar corporation. My loyalty isn't in question. Everyone's loyalty is in question until proven otherwise. Jack maintained eye contact, looking for micro-expressions that might reveal deception. The digital evidence points to your credentials. I need access to your devices, accounts, and complete activity logs for the past 30 days. Vivian didn't flinch. You'll have them within the hour, and when you find nothing, I expect a formal acknowledgement that I've been cleared. Fair enough? Something in Vivian's confidence gave Jack pause. Either she was an exceptional liar or she genuinely believed her systems were secure. He'd encountered both types before. Jack left finance with more questions than answers. His instincts told him Vivian wasn't directly involved, but something didn't add up. If her credentials had been compromised, how had the attackers bypassed multiple security layers? The answer came from an unexpected source. As Jack headed back to the security center, Elaine's executive assistant intercepted him in the hallway. Thomas Richards was in his mid-30s, immaculately dressed, and perpetually organized, the perfect counterbalance to a CEO's chaotic schedule. Mr. Harlow, do you have a moment? Thomas glanced around, uncharacteristic nervousness breaking through his professional demeanor. There's something you should see, privately. They ducked into an empty conference room. Thomas produced a tablet, fingers trembling slightly as he unlocked it. I was organizing Ms. Monarch's schedule for the Palmer project announcement when I noticed some inconsistencies in the system timestamps. Look at these calendar entries. The tablet displayed Elaine's executive calendar, specific meetings highlighted. These block periods were added to her schedule, directly bypassing my normal process. I thought perhaps she'd added them herself, but when I checked the access logs, Jack studied the screen, understanding dawning. The entries came from Vivian's account. Thomas nodded. But Ms. Brooks never accesses the executive calendar directly. That's not her process. She sends schedule requests through proper channels. When did this start? 3 months ago, right after the quarterly board meeting where the Palmer project received initial funding approval. The timing aligned perfectly with the first detected security breaches. Jack's mind raced through implications. Thomas, has anyone unusual had access to the executive floor recently? IT support, maintenance, anyone who might have had physical proximity to Ms. Brooks's devices? Thomas considered the question, brow furrowed in concentration. There was a technical issue with the executive suite's climate system about 3 months ago. Facilities management brought in an outside contractor because our regular team couldn't identify the problem. I need names, dates, and complete access logs for that period, Jack instructed, and keep this conversation between us for now. Thomas nodded, professional composure returning. Of course, I'll have everything to you within 30 minutes. Jack headed straight for the Security Operations Center. Sarah was coordinating team deployments, positioning trusted personnel at critical access points throughout the building. We need to look at physical security breaches from 3 months ago, Jack explained, sharing Thomas's information. Specifically contractors who worked on the executive floor's climate systems. Sarah immediately pulled up the relevant logs. Bennett Mechanical Services. They sent 2 technicians, Craig Wilson and Jason Harding. Standard background checks were performed, nothing flagged. Run them again, Jack instructed. Deep background and cross-reference with any known Atlas Global connections. While Sarah's team worked on the contractor angle, Jack met with Kevin to analyze Vivian's devices. The CFO had delivered as promised laptops, tablets, phones, and complete access to her accounts. Her security practices are actually impressive, Kevin admitted, after an hour of forensic examination. Multi-factor authentication, encrypted drives, regular password rotation. Better than most executives I've worked with. Which makes it all the more unlikely that someone hacked her remotely, Jack observed. They needed physical access. Kevin nodded, pulling up a diagnostic report. And they had it. Look at this hidden process running in the background of her laptop. It's sophisticated spyware disguised as a system utility. Records keystrokes, captures authentication tokens, and transmits data through encrypted channels that mimic normal network traffic. Could she have installed it accidentally? No way. This required physical access and admin privileges. Someone installed this directly onto her machine. The pieces were falling into place. Jack's phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. Hit on Jason Harding, former military intelligence, now private contractor. Known connections to security firms used by Atlas subsidiaries. The climate system maintenance had been a cover. While supposedly fixing temperature controls in the executive suite, Harding had installed spyware on Vivian's devices, giving Atlas access to her credentials. The perfect Trojan horse, a trusted executive who had no idea her digital identity was being used against the company. Jack briefed Elaine and Elizabeth on the findings that evening. The three gathered in Elaine's office, security protocols, ensuring their conversation remained private. So Vivian is cleared, Elaine confirmed, visible relief softening her features momentarily. Her devices were compromised, but she wasn't complicit, Jack clarified. The operation was sophisticated, professional, intelligence-level tradecraft. They used her credentials to access the systems while establishing Reed as their primary inside man. Elizabeth's expression darkened, which means we still have active threats within Monarch. The question is who and at what level. We focus on the executive support staff, Jack recommended. Anyone with access to multiple departments. The pattern suggests they targeted individuals whose credentials could move across systems without triggering alerts. Elaine nodded, decision made. Implement whatever measures you need. Full authority, no exceptions. The next morning brought fresh challenges. The new security protocols had begun identifying suspicious patterns across multiple departments. Jack established a secure operations center in a converted storage area off-network and accessible only to his core team. Within these walls, they constructed an organizational map of Monarch Holdings, tracking data via access patterns and identifying anomalies. Kevin burst into the operations center just before noon, eyes wide with alarm. We've got a problem. Someone's accessing the Palmer Project servers right now using admin credentials we haven't locked down yet. Jack moved immediately. Trace the access point. 23rd floor R&D section. Kevin's fingers flew across his keyboard. Terminal in Lab 3. Sarah, get a team there now, Jack ordered through his comlink. Silent approach, full containment protocols. Jack took the stairs rather than risking the elevator, drawing his security access card as he descended. The R&D floors required specialized clearance, their contents worth billions in intellectual property. Sarah's voice came through his earpiece as he reached the 24th floor. Team in position, Lab 3 occupied by a single individual, Dr. Morgan Chen, Research Director. Jack froze mid-stride. Morgan Chen, the brilliant physicist leading the Palmer Project and brother of board member James Chen, one of Monarch's most trusted executives responsible for the very technology Atlas wanted to suppress. Hold position, Jack instructed. I'm approaching from the secondary entrance. Lab 3 occupied the northwest corner of the R&D floor, its glass walls offering views of both the laboratory equipment within and the Manhattan skyline beyond. Morgan Chen sat at a central workstation, multiple screens displaying complex data models of the Palmer Project battery technology. Jack entered silently through the rear door, security team members positioned at all exits. Chen didn't notice his approach, absorbed in the data scrolling across his screens. Only when Jack was directly behind him did the researcher sense another presence, spinning his chair with a startled expression. Mr. Harlow, Chen began, confusion evident. Is there a problem? I wasn't notified of any security checks today. Jack noted the open server connections on Chen's monitors. Active data transfers in progress, sending Palmer Project specifications to an external location. Dr. Chen, I need you to step away from the workstation, Jack instructed calmly. We have a security protocol in progress. Chen hesitated, glancing at his screens. I'm in the middle of critical simulations for next week's demonstration. This can't wait. The data transferred to an external server can wait, Jack corrected, nodding toward the monitor displaying the active connection. That's not part of any authorized protocol. Chen's expression shifted alarm replacing confusion. What transfer? I didn't authorize any external connections. Either Chen was an exceptional actor or he was genuinely unaware of the data being extracted through his credentials. Jack made a split-second assessment based on the researcher's body language and eye movement patterns. Chen appeared genuinely confused, not guilty. Someone's using your access to extract Palmer Project data, Jack explained, gesturing for Sarah's team to secure the room. I need to lock down your station and trace the connection. Kevin arrived moments later, breathing heavily from the stairs. He immediately went to work on Chen's terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard as he traced the data pathway. It's being routed through multiple proxy servers, Kevin reported. Sophisticated encryption. Whoever set this up knows what they're doing. Can you stop the transfer? Jack asked. Already done, Kevin confirmed, but they got approximately 60% of the core specifications before I cut the connection. Chen had gone pale, the implications sinking in. Someone's stealing my work, but how my credentials are biometric and token authenticated. Kevin pointed to a small device barely visible beneath Chen's workstation. Hardware keylogger with wireless transmission capability. Captures everything, including authentication sequences. Professionally installed, virtually undetectable, unless you're specifically looking for it. When was your workstation last serviced? Jack asked. Chen thought for a moment. IT support came through last week. Routine system updates, they said. Standard procedure before the project demonstration. Who specifically worked on your system? Alan Foster. He's been our R&D support specialist for years. Jack and Sarah exchanged glances. Another trusted insider, another vulnerability exploited. I need to find Foster now, Jack instructed Sarah. Lock down all his access and prepare a containment team. Kevin, stay with Dr. Chen and secure all R&D systems. No one accesses anything until we've cleared every workstation. The hunt for Alan Foster proved short-lived. Security cameras showed him leaving the building 30 minutes earlier, shortly after the data transfer began. His access card had been used to exit through a secondary loading dock, bypassing the main lobby's more extensive security. He knew we were closing in, Sarah observed as they reviewed the footage. Question is, where's he going with the data? The answer came from an unexpected source. Elaine appeared at the operations center, tablet in hand. Atlas Global has called an emergency press conference for 3. Their CEO is announcing a groundbreaking energy storage technology that will revolutionize the renewable sector. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Foster had extracted enough of the Palmer Project specifications to allow Atlas to claim the technology as their own. If they announced, First Monarch would appear to be the copycat, not the innovator. They're going to steal the entire project. Elaine continued, rare anger coloring her voice. 6 years of research, billions in development, all hijacked in a single day. Jack checked his watch. 2 hours until Atlas's press conference. Where's the demonstration model of the Palmer battery? Secure lab on the 22nd floor, Chen replied. Self-contained prototype with the core technology integrated. And the backup research data. Offline storage in the same facility. Isolated system not connected to the network. Jack nodded, decision made. We need to move up our timeline. Monarch announces the Palmer project today with working demonstration before Atlas can stake their claim. Elaine's eyes widened. The announcement was scheduled for next week. We're not prepared for a public reveal. If we wait, Atlas defines the narrative, Jack countered. They position themselves as the innovators and Monarch as the followers. Market perception matters as much as legal reality. Elizabeth Reynolds, who had joined them midway through the discussion, nodded her agreement. Jack's right. I've seen this playbook before. They're counting on our scheduled timeline. We need to disrupt their expectations. Elaine considered the options, CEO instincts, weighing risk against necessity. A hastily organized press event will raise questions. Better than allowing a competitor to steal your thunder and your technology, Jack replied. Doctor, Chen, can the prototype be prepared for demonstration within 90 minutes? Chen nodded, professional pride evident. The system is functional, not polished for public display, but it works. That's all we need, Jack assured him. Proof of concept with Monarch's name attached before Atlas can claim it. Elaine made her decision with the swift certainty that defined her leadership style. Make it happen. I'll contact our PR team and key media outlets. Elizabeth, can you assemble available board members to present a united front? The next 90 minutes transformed Monarch Tower's main auditorium into an impromptu press center. Security teams swept the space for potential threats, while technical crews prepared for the prototype demonstration. Chen and his research team worked feverishly to prepare the Palmer battery for public viewing, its revolutionary technology about to be revealed ahead of schedule. Jack coordinated security from a command post adjacent to the auditorium, deploying trusted personnel at all access points. Sarah supervised the executive protection detail, her team surrounding Elaine and the board members with discreet but effective security. Foster's access card just pinged at a coffee shop 3 blocks from Atlas headquarters, Kevin reported. He's delivering the stolen data personally. Alert FBI cybercrime, Jack instructed. They can intercept him before he completes the handoff. As the clock ticked toward 2 p.m., the auditorium filled with hastily assembled financial press and industry analysts. The atmosphere crackled with curiosity and speculation. Emergency announcements from major corporations typically meant either crisis or opportunity. Backstage, Elaine prepared with her executive team. The Navy power suit had been replaced by a deep emerald that conveyed confidence without aggression. Jack noticed her hands steady despite the pressure, no visible tension betraying the stakes involved. Security assessment, she asked as he approached. Perimeter secured, all attendees vetted through expedited protocols. Dr. Chen confirms the prototype is functional and ready for demonstration. Elaine nodded, professional mask firmly in place. Only her eyes revealed the emotional and undercurrent determination mingled with justified anger at the attempted theft of her company's future. Atlas won't stop with this, she observed quietly. They'll find other angles, other vulnerabilities. Let them try, Jack replied, with the confidence of someone who had faced worse threats. We're closing the gaps. Every attack makes their position weaker, their desperation more obvious. A subtle smile touched Elaine's lips. You sound like my father. He always said competition reveals character faster than cooperation. Smart man. He would have liked you. Something shifted in her expression, a brief glimpse behind the CEO facade to the woman beneath. Direct, principled, unimpressed by status or wealth, rare qualities in my experience. Before Jack could respond, Elizabeth appeared at Elaine's side. We're ready, full media presence, key investors online, and the board is assembled in the front row. The moment had arrived. Jack resumed his position near the stage entrance, scanning the audience for potential threats while monitoring security updates through his earpiece. The auditorium lights dimmed as Elaine stepped onto the stage, her presence immediately commanding attention. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on such short notice. Her voice carried naturally, requiring no artificial amplification to fill the space. Today, Monarch Holdings is proud to announce a technological breakthrough that will transform the global energy landscape. As Elaine outlined the Palmer project's capabilities, Jack received an urgent update from Kevin. Foster intercepted by FBI. Data secured before handoff. Atlas executives in custody for questioning. A small victory in the larger war, but significant nonetheless. Atlas's press conference would now be derailed by federal agents rather than triumphant announcements. On stage, Dr. Chen joined Elaine to demonstrate the prototype. The Palmer battery, surprisingly compact given its capabilities, powered up indicators showing its revolutionary storage capacity. The audience murmured with increasing excitement as Chen explained how the technology would make renewable energy viable for large-scale implementation. This isn't just an incremental improvement, Elaine concluded. This is a paradigm shift in how we power our world, and Monarch Holdings is proud to lead that transformation. The presentation concluded to enthusiastic applause. Financial analysts were already calculating market implications, reporters drafting headlines about the energy sector's impending disruption. Monarch had seized the narrative, positioning itself as the innovator, rather than allowing Atlas to steal that mantle. As the audience dispersed, Jack received another update that changed everything. Sir, we've identified additional breaches in the executive messaging system. Someone intercepted communications between Ms. Monarch and board members for months. Source, Jack demanded, traced to executive support staff. Thomas Richards' account shows irregular access patterns. Thomas Richards. Elaine's trusted executive assistant, the man who had helped identify Vivian Brooks's compromised credentials. Either his account had been hacked like the others or Jack's combat instincts flared. The revelation about Vivian had come too easily, too conveniently. What if Thomas had pointed them toward Vivian to divert attention from himself? Location on Richards, Jack demanded. Executive floor heading toward Ms. Monarch's office. Jack moved immediately, taking the service stairs two at a time. If Thomas was the mole, his position gave him unprecedented access to Monarch's operations. And with his cover potentially blown by the day's events, he might take desperate action. The executive floor appeared normal as Jack emerged from the stairwell. Staff moved between offices, phones rang, business continued. Thomas stood by his desk outside Elaine's office, organizing documents with his usual efficiency. Nothing seemed amiss, yet Jack's instincts screamed danger. He approached casually, maintaining a non-threatening posture while positioning himself to intercept if necessary. "Thomas, good work today." The assistant looked up, professional smile in place. "Mr. Harlow, yes, quite successful despite the rushed timeline. Ms. Monarch is taking calls from investors now. Shall I let her know you need to speak with her?" Jack noted the subtle details: Thomas's slightly elevated breathing rate, the faint sheen of perspiration at his temples, the tight grip on the tablet in his hands. Stress indicators that might be explained by the day's events or might suggest something more sinister. "Actually, I wanted to ask you about the executive messaging system," Jack replied conversationally. "Kevin's found some unusual access patterns we're trying to trace." Thomas's smile never wavered, but his pupils contracted slightly, a physiological response to threat that couldn't be controlled. "I'm happy to help however I can. Should I have Ed pull the logs for review?" "Already done," Jack assured him. "Strange thing is the irregular access traces back to this floor, specifically to your account credentials." The moment stretched between them, tension building like static before a lightning strike. Thomas maintained his composed expression, but his right hand drifted slightly toward his jacket pocket. "That's concerning," Thomas replied, voice perfectly modulated. "Perhaps my account was compromised like Ms. Brooks. I should change my authentication immediately." "Good idea," Jack agreed, closing the distance between them casually. "Kevin can help with that. He's implementing new security protocols for all executive staff." Thomas nodded, taking a half step back. "I'll head down to IT right away. If you'll excuse me." Jack blocked his path with subtle efficiency military training, allowing him to control the space without obvious aggression. "Actually, why don't we call Kevin up here? More convenient for you." Thomas recognized the trap closing around him. His professional facade cracked, desperation flickering across his features. His hand moved to his pocket, extracting not a weapon, but a small device resembling a thumb drive. "I wouldn't," Jack warned quietly. "Whatever that is using it will only make your situation worse." Thomas's expression hardened with unexpected resolve. "You understand nothing. Atlas isn't the enemy. Their vision for a controlled energy transition preserves economic stability. Monarch's technology released too soon will collapse entire industries, devastate communities dependent on traditional energy. The justification of a true believer, not merely a paid operative. Those were always the most dangerous people who believed their betrayal served a greater good." "Put the device down, Thomas." The assistant's fingers tightened around the small object. "This drive contains a virus designed specifically for Monarch's networks. One connection to any terminal, and the Palmer project data will be corrupted beyond recovery. Years of work erased in seconds." Jack assessed options, calculating risk against necessity. Thomas stood between him and Elaine's office door, where she remained unaware of the danger just outside. Any aggressive move might prompt Thomas to activate the device before it could be contained. "You won't make it to a terminal," Jack stated with quiet certainty. "Security protocols have already isolated the executive systems. That device would be quarantined before it could deploy its payload." Doubt flickered across Thomas's face. "You're lying." "Kevin implemented the protections this morning after we discovered the R&D breach. Every input requires biometric verification now. Your credentials have been suspended pending security review." The claim was partially true. New protocols were being implemented, though not yet at the level Jack suggested. The psychological warfare aimed to introduce uncertainty, undermining Thomas's confidence in his plan. Thomas glanced toward the nearest computer terminal, calculating probability of success. In that moment of divided attention, Jack moved. 3 precise steps closed the distance between them. His hand clamped around Thomas's wrist with enough pressure to trigger the radial nerve fingers reflexively opening to drop the device. Security personnel converged from positions around the floor, their presence previously concealed by normal office activities. Within seconds, Thomas was restrained, the virus-laden drive secured in an isolation container. Elaine emerged from her office alerted by the commotion. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock as she processed the scene before her. Thomas, disbelief colored her voice. You were the mole. The betrayal cut deeper than the others. Thomas had been her right hand for 3 years, privy to every aspect of her professional life. Not merely an employee, but someone she had trusted implicitly. Take him to security, Jack instructed the team. Full isolation protocols. No communication with anyone until FBI counterintelligence arrives. As Thomas was escorted away, Elaine remained motionless, processing yet another layer of betrayal. The personal cost of leadership written clearly in her expression. He had access to everything, she said quietly once they were alone. My schedule, my communications, my personal files. For 3 years. Jack had seen that expression for the 1,000-yard stare of someone whose world had just imploded. In war zones, it followed bombings and ambushes. In corporate America, it followed betrayal by trusted confidants. The damage is contained, he assured her. Kevin's team will sweep all systems he accessed. We'll recover and secure any compromised data. Elaine nodded mechanically, CEO training, maintaining external composure while internal frameworks collapsed. Schedule a full executive staff meeting for tomorrow morning. Everyone gets vetted, no exceptions. Already in progress, Jack confirmed. Sarah's team is implementing enhanced verification for all personnel with access to sensitive information. The crisis had been averted, but at significant cost. Trust once broken couldn't be repaired with security protocols alone. Monarch Holdings had survived the attack on its technology, but the human damage remained incalculable. As the day's adrenaline subsided, Jack remembered his commitment to Lily. He checked his watch, nearly time for after-school pickup. Some promises couldn't be broken, especially to a 7-year-old who counted on consistency in a world of adult chaos. I need to leave by 5, he informed Sarah as they coordinated the ongoing security response. Lily's expecting me. Sarah nodded, understanding. Go, we've got this contained. Thomas is in FBI custody, Foster's being processed on corporate espionage charges, and the Palmer Project announcement has stock analysts falling over themselves with excitement. Jack found Elaine in her office as he prepared to leave. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan spread before her like a 3-dimensional map of power and influence. The triumphant energy from the press conference had faded, replaced by the quiet aftermath of betrayal. Security teams are in place for the night, Jack reported. Additional FBI resources arriving to process Thomas and secure evidence. Kevin's implementing system-wide security upgrades to prevent similar breaches. Elaine nodded without turning from the window. Thank you. The simple acknowledgement carried weight beyond professional courtesy. Jack recognized the toll the day had taken not just on Monarch Holdings, but on the woman who carried its legacy. He was with me since my father died, she said, finally still facing the city. Helped me transition into leadership when half the board expected me to fail. I trusted him completely. Jack understood betrayal's unique sting. He'd experienced it in the field where misplaced trust cost lives. The best operatives cultivate that kind of trust. It's what makes them effective. And what makes the betrayal so devastating. Elaine turned finally, professional armor momentarily lowered. I keep asking myself what I missed. What signs should have been obvious? People like Thomas succeed because they are exceptional at concealing their true nature, Jack replied. Don't blame yourself for believing someone designed specifically to be believed. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Is that what they taught you in SEAL training? How to recognize deception? They taught us to trust our instincts while verifying everything. Survival depends on balancing faith with skepticism. Elaine considered this her analytical mind processing the principle. A difficult balance in business where relationships are currency and trust facilitates efficiency. Different battlefields, same principles, Jack observed. Verify before trusting, compartmentalize sensitive information, and always have contingency plans. The conversation shifted something between them. Professional respect deepening into something more nuanced. Two people who understood leadership's burden from different perspectives. Jack glanced at his watch. I need to pick up Lily. Of course. Elaine's professional demeanor returned, though tempered now with something warmer. Thank you again, Jack, for everything today. As Jack headed toward the elevator, his phone vibrated with a message from the childcare center. Lily waiting in lobby with Ms. Monarch. She insisted on helping until you arrived. Surprised, Jack took the executive elevator directly to the main floor. The lobby's evening bustle had begun, Monarch employees streaming toward exits after a workday that had fundamentally altered their company's future. Near the security desk, Lily sat cross-legged on a visitor's couch, animatedly explaining something from a book spread across her lap. Beside her, Elaine Monarch, who had presented revolutionary technology to financial markets hours earlier, listened with complete attention, her focus entirely on the 7-year-old's explanation of marine ecosystems. The sight stopped Jack mid-stride. Two separate worlds, his professional responsibilities and personal commitments, converging unexpectedly. Lily spotted him first, face-lighting with recognition. Daddy, Ms. Elaine knows all about deep ocean vents. She studied ocean chemistry in college. Elaine looked up, momentarily self-conscious at being caught in this uncharacteristic role. The formidable CEO had been replaced by someone more approachable, genuine interest animating her features as she engaged with Lily's enthusiastic questions. I hope this is okay, Elaine said as Jack approached. I was heading to a meeting when I saw Lily waiting. She was explaining the book we looked at yesterday. Completely okay, Jack assured her, though I'm surprised you had time given today's events. Something soft flickered across Elaine's expression. Sometimes the most important meetings aren't on the calendar. The observation carried unexpected weight, revealing values that corporate profiles and security briefings had never captured. Jack found himself re-evaluating his understanding of Elaine Monarch, not just as a CEO protecting intellectual property, but as a person capable of setting aside crisis management to discuss marine biology with a curious child. As they left Monarch Tower, Lily chattering about deep-sea creatures and new books, Elaine had recommended Jack reflected on the day's revelations. Corporate espionage and betrayal had been contained, at least temporarily. The Palmer Project remained secure, its announcement preempting Atlas Global's attempted theft. But perhaps the most significant discovery had nothing to do with security protocols or technology patents. It was the recognition that beneath Monarch Holdings' corporate structure beat a very human heart, vulnerable to betrayal, capable of resilience, and ultimately defined not by market capitalization, but by the values of those who led it. The evening sun broke through Manhattan's concrete canyons, casting long shadows as another workday ended. For most Monarch employees, it had been a day of unexpected announcements and exciting potential. Few understood how close the company had come to catastrophe or how narrowly disaster had been averted. Jack took Lily's hand as they navigated the crowded sidewalk. Her small fingers curled trustingly around his, a reminder of what truly mattered amid corporate wars and betrayals. The battles would continue tomorrow, threats evolving as adversaries regrouped. But for now, this moment was enough. 3 days after the Palmer Project announcement, a sense of uneasy calm settled over Monarch Tower. FBI cybercrime units had completed their initial investigation, arresting several Atlas Global executives on corporate espionage charges. The financial markets had responded enthusiastically to Monarch's battery technology, driving stock prices to record highs. On the surface, victory seemed complete. Jack Harlow knew better. 20 years in high-stakes conflict had taught him that apparent victories often masked deeper vulnerabilities. Enemies rarely surrendered after a single defeat. They adapted, regrouped, and attacked from unexpected directions. Security audit complete for executive level, Sarah Davis reported during their morning briefing. Dark circles shadowed her eyes after days of continuous operations. All systems reconfigured with biometric authentication. No unauthorized access detected since Thomas's arrest. Kevin Chen nodded in agreement, his usual energy drinks replaced by actual coffee, a sign of maturing crisis management. Network architecture has been completely overhauled. Compartmentalization protocols functioning as designed. If someone wants to steal data now, they'd need physical access to isolated systems. Jack reviewed the security dashboard on his tablet. Red indicators had been replaced by reassuring green across critical systems. But experience had taught him that security wasn't about technology alone. It was about people, psychology, and identifying vulnerabilities before they could be exploited. What about personnel? Jack asked. Where do we stand on comprehensive background reviews? Sarah grimaced slightly. HR is pushing back, claims the enhanced vetting protocols violate employee privacy policies and could trigger legal challenges. They're not wrong, Kevin added. Some of these measures would be considered invasive in normal circumstances. These aren't normal circumstances. Jack's tone left no room for debate. We've had multiple confirmed insider threats at the highest levels. Traditional vetting failed to identify them. We either implement enhanced protocols or accept ongoing vulnerability. The security team nodded their understanding. They'd seen firsthand how conventional safeguards had failed against a sophisticated, multi-layered attack. Normal wasn't an option anymore. I'll speak with Elaine, Jack decided. This needs executive authorization. He found the CEO in her office conducting a video conference with international energy ministers, eager to discuss the Palmer Project's global implications. Even through a screen, her commanding presence was evident. She guided the conversation with precise knowledge of both technology and geopolitics, addressing complex questions without notes or hesitation. Jack waited until the call ended before entering. Elaine acknowledged him with a nod, her expression revealing the strain beneath her professional composure. Leading a company through crisis demanded a particular kind of strength, not the adrenaline-fueled courage of combat, but the sustained resilience to make difficult decisions day after day without visible fatigue. HR is balking at the enhanced security protocols. Jack began without preamble. We need executive authorization to implement company-wide. Elaine sighed, rubbing her temple briefly. Jennifer from legal already called. She's concerned about potential lawsuits from employees who feel their privacy is being violated. And I'm concerned about more infiltrations that could destroy the company entirely, Jack countered. Atlas took one shot and missed. They'll try again with different tactics, different people. I know, Elaine's voice carried the weight of command responsibility. But we can't turn Monarch into a surveillance state. These people aren't soldiers, Jack. They're engineers, researchers, administrative staff. They didn't sign up for constant monitoring. The fundamental tension of corporate security lay exposed between them. How to balance protection against intrusion, effectiveness against morale, safety against freedom. Jack had navigated similar tensions in military operations where security measures had to account for civilian impact. What if we tier the approach, he suggested. Highest scrutiny for those with access to critical systems and intellectual property, scaled monitoring for others based on access levels. Voluntary enhanced verification for employees who want faster system access. Elaine considered the proposal's CEO instincts weighing competing interests. Draft the implementation plan with those adjustments. I'll sign off this afternoon. As Jack turned to leave, Elaine added, how's Lily handling all this? The irregular hours, the crisis atmosphere. It can't be easy for her. The question caught him off guard. Few executives in his experience considered the family impact of security operations. She's resilient, but yes, it's been challenging. We had plans for the weekend that got postponed. What kind of plans? Museum of Natural History. She's fascinated by the ocean exhibits, especially after reading those books you recommended. Something softened in Elaine's expression. The blue whale model in the Milstein Hall of Ocean Life. I used to stare at it for hours as a child, convinced my father it justified a family trip to New York every summer. The glimpse into her childhood created an unexpected connection, a reminder that beneath corporate armor lay human experiences that shaped leadership instincts and personal values. Make time for her, Jack. Elaine's voice carried quiet certainty. The company survived without you before. It can manage a weekend without you now. Some moments can't be rescheduled. Jack nodded, recognizing the wisdom from someone who had likely missed such moments in her own life. I'll have the security protocol draft to you by 3. He spent the rest of the morning refining the tiered approach with Sarah and Kevin, balancing security imperatives against practical implementation. By early afternoon, the framework was ready for executive approval. As Jack headed toward Elaine's office with the completed proposal, alarms blared through the security system. Red emergency indicators flashed across his tablet. Active security breach, multiple access points, cascading systems failures. Kevin, what's happening? Jack demanded through his communication link. Massive DOS attack against our external systems. Kevin's voice came through tension evident. Someone's flooding our networks with millions of simultaneous connection requests. Firewalls holding but straining. Origin distributed. Thousands of compromised systems worldwide. Professional botnet deployment. Atlas striking back. Not with insider infiltration this time, but brute force external attack against Monarch's digital infrastructure. Their strategy had adapted based on previous failure, precisely as Jack had anticipated. He redirected to the Security Operations Center mission focus, narrowing to immediate threat response. The SOC hummed with controlled urgency analysts tracking attack vectors across digital displays. Primary firewalls at 87% capacity, a network specialist reported. Secondary systems engaging. External communications disrupted, another added. Email servers offline, cloud services degrading. Kevin's fingers flew across multiple keyboards implementing countermeasures with practiced efficiency. They're probing for weaknesses, testing different entry points simultaneously. Jack assessed the tactical situation with combat-honed clarity. This isn't just disruption, it's a diversion. They want us focused on external systems while something else happens. Sarah nodded her agreement, security instincts aligned with his assessment. Classic misdirection. Question is, what's their actual target? The answer came moments later as alarms triggered on a different system, physical security, this time not digital. Perimeter breach in the research lab's 22nd floor where the Palmer project prototype was stored. Security teams to R&D level, Jack ordered through the command system. Possible hostile entry, primary target, likely Palmer prototype. Sarah locked down executive floor, army room in secure Ms. Monarch. Kevin maintained cyber defenses but allocate resources to internal surveillance systems. Jack took the service stairs, drawing in his security access card. Standard response protocols called for facility lockdown during simultaneous cyber-physical attacks, sealing floors, and restricting elevator access. Stairs remained the only reliable transit option. 22 floors of vertical movement would challenge an ordinary security executive. For a former SEAL with ongoing physical conditioning requirements, it was barely a warm-up. Jack reached the research level in minutes, emerging into corridor illuminated by pulsing emergency lights. Security personnel had established a perimeter around the main laboratory complex. The team leader, former military from his stance and tactical positioning, approached Jack with rapid assessment. 2 intruders breached through service entrance, bypassed card readers with cloned credentials, made it to Lab 7 before we detected presence. Currently contained but armed. Lab 7 holds what? Jack asked, mentally mapping the research floor layout. Primary testing facility for Palmer battery integration with industrial systems. Dr. Chen was conducting stress tests when the intrusion occurred. Chen's in there, the team leader nodded grimly, along with 2 research assistants. No communication since the hostiles entered. Jack accessed the surveillance system through his security tablet. Camera feeds from Lab 7 showed 2 men in maintenance uniforms holding what appeared to be compact pistols. Dr. Chen and his assistants stood against the far wall, hands raised. The prototype battery system occupied the center of the laboratory, connected to testing equipment via multiple cables. Any demands? Jack asked. None yet. FBI response team is 15 minutes out. Jack studied the tactical layout, assessing angles and options. We don't have 15 minutes. Those aren't ordinary weapons they're carrying. Look at the configuration. Those are specialized EMP devices designed to fry electronic systems. The realization spread through the security team. The intruders weren't there to steal the prototype they intended to destroy, it erasing months of research and development that couldn't be easily reconstructed. We need immediate intervention, Jack decided. Non-lethal takedown before they can activate those devices. The security team moved into position while Jack established communication with the operations center. Kevin, can you access Lab 7's environmental systems? We need options for disorientation. On it, Kevin replied. I can trigger emergency protocols independently for that section. Fire suppression, emergency lighting, ventilation control. Perfect. Execute on my mark. Sequence as follows: lights out, then ventilation surge, then fire suppression warning. The tactic was adapted from hostage rescue operations, create cascading disorientation through sensory disruption, then exploit the momentary confusion for entry and neutralization. Each system activation would draw attention in different directions, dividing the hostiles' focus. Security teams positioned at both laboratory entrances, equipped with non-lethal restraint options. Jack took point at the main door security card ready for emergency override. Execute, he ordered, and the laboratory plunged into darkness as emergency lighting systems deactivated. Through his tablet's infrared feed, Jack watched the intruders react with predictable alarm attention, shifting from hostages to environment. 3 seconds later, ventilation systems surged to maximum capacity, creating a disorienting rush of air and sound. The fire suppression warning followed strobing lights and automated announcements, further fracturing focus and situational awareness. Jack swiped his security card, overriding the electronic locks. The door hissed open, security teams moving through with practiced efficiency. In the confusion, the intruders failed to deploy their weapons effectively. 12 seconds from entry, both were subdued and restrained, EMP devices secured before activation. Dr. Chen and his assistants appeared shaken but unharmed. The Palmer prototype remained intact, its testing sequences interrupted but systems undamaged. Get them to a secure area, Jack instructed the security team, indicating the subdued intruders. Full isolation, no communication until FBI arrives. As the immediate threat subsided, Jack received updated status from the operations center. The cyber attack had begun to recede, external systems gradually recovering as defensive measures held firm. Attackers disengaging from digital infrastructure, Kevin reported. Looks like they've realized the physical breach failed. Maintain defensive posture, Jack instructed. This could be another misdirection before a secondary attack. The next hour brought gradual de-escalation. FBI cyber teams arrived to assist with digital forensics, while counterterrorism units took custody of the physical intruders. Initial interrogation revealed hired operatives rather than Atlas employees, directly professional contractors, with military backgrounds, precisely as Jack had predicted. By early evening, Monarch Tower had returned to secured status emergency protocols, downgraded to elevated vigilance. Jack coordinated with federal authorities, ensuring all evidence was properly documented and chain of custody maintained for eventual prosecution. He found Elaine in the executive conference room meeting with Elizabeth Reynolds and key board members to assess the attack's implications. The atmosphere carried the peculiar mix of tension and relief that followed narrowly averted disaster. Damage assessment, Elizabeth asked as Jack entered. Minimal physical impact. R&D systems intact, prototype undamaged. Digital infrastructure recovering with no evidence of data compromise or exfiltration. Elaine's expression remained controlled, but Jack recognized the subtle indicators of accumulated stress, slight tension around her eyes, the careful precision of movement that masked fatigue. They're escalating, she observed quietly. First corporate espionage, now direct sabotage with potential for violence. Elizabeth nodded grimly. Atlas is facing existential threat from our technology. Their market valuation would collapse if the Palmer project succeeds commercially. Desperate corporations take desperate measures. We need to consider the human factor, Jack added. Today's intruders were professional contractors, but they had insider knowledge of our security systems and laboratory layouts. Someone provided that intelligence. The implication hung in the air. Despite removing Thomas and the other identified moles, Monarch still harbored individuals willing to assist external attacks. Enhanced security protocols are no longer optional. Elaine decided, resolution hardening her voice. Implementation begins immediately, all levels. Legal concerns are secondary to preventing corporate sabotage and potential harm to our people. Jack nodded, appreciating the decisive leadership. I'll coordinate with department heads personally. Full deployment can be completed within 48 hours. The meeting continued with strategic planning for public response and investor communication. By its conclusion, Monarch had developed a comprehensive approach to navigating the ongoing corporate conflict while maintaining market confidence. As the room cleared, Elaine remained seated, the momentary solitude revealing the weight she carried. Jack recognized the expression from commanding officers after difficult operations, the private reckoning with decisions made and consequences shouldered. Second thoughts, he asked quietly. Elaine looked up, momentary surprise at his perception, quickly replaced by rueful acknowledgement. Not about the technology, The Palmer Project will transform global energy systems for the better. But the human cost, she gestured toward the window indicating the research teams and staff throughout the building. These people didn't sign up for corporate warfare. They came to build something meaningful to solve problems that matter. Now they're targets because of decisions I've made. The burden of command responsibility not just for mission success, but for the well-being of those who followed. Jack understood it viscerally from battlefield experience. Leadership means making decisions that affect others, he offered. Sometimes protecting them requires measures they don't initially welcome. Elaine considered this, fingers absently tracing patterns on the polished conference table. My father used to say something similar. Hard choices now prevent harder consequences later. I thought it was just business philosophy. Now I understand he was talking about the weight of responsibility. The moment of vulnerability created an unexpected connection between them, not CEO and security director, but two people who understood leadership's isolation and the constant balance between protection and freedom. The enhanced security will help, Jack assured her, but ultimately what protects Monarch isn't technology or protocols. It's building an organization where people feel valued enough to report concerns, where loyalty comes from shared purpose rather than fear or obligation. Elaine's expression shifted professional interest, deepening into something more thoughtful. That sounds more like cultural philosophy than security strategy. They're inseparable. The strongest security systems fail when people circumvent them for convenience or harbor resentments that make them vulnerable to manipulation. Technical solutions address symptoms. Cultural solutions address causes. As darkness fell over Manhattan, the Monarch Tower's lights illuminated against the night sky, a beacon of innovation amid competing corporate interests. Jack completed his final security briefing with the overnight team, ensuring continuous vigilance without creating unsustainable operational tempo. His phone vibrated with a message from Mrs. Perkins at Lily's after-school program. Reminder early dismissal tomorrow. School Professional Development Day. The simple text yanked Jack from tactical planning to parental responsibility, the constant dual identity of single fatherhood. Tomorrow's security implementation would require his presence throughout the day, directly conflicting with Lily's needs. He found Sarah finishing her shift, handover operational details flowing seamlessly to the night security team. I need to adjust tomorrow's schedule. Lily has early dismissal from school. Sarah nodded without hesitation. Go. I'll handle the security protocol implementation. You've established the framework. I can oversee execution. You sure it's going to be challenging? Sarah's expression softened momentarily. Jack Michael missed our daughter's school play the night before his final deployment. He always said he'd trade anything for those 2 hours back. Some things can't wait for the next crisis to pass. The quiet wisdom struck home. Jack had seen too many military families fractured by the constant prioritization of mission over moments, birthdays, missed milestones, uncelebrated connections weakened by absence, until they finally broke. Thanks, Sarah. I owe you. No, you don't. Just pay it forward someday. The next morning brought unexpected complications. Jack had arranged his schedule to accommodate Lily's early dismissal, but crisis refused to respect personal planning. At 9:17 a.m., his security tablet erupted with priority alerts. Anonymous threats had been delivered to multiple Monarch executives, including specific mentions of home addresses and family information. Targeted intimidations, Sarah confirmed during their emergency briefing, designed to create fear and uncertainty among leadership. FBI is tracing origin, but early indicators suggest sophisticated anonymization. Jack reviewed the threat assessment, noting the personalized nature of each message. Whoever had crafted them possessed intimate knowledge of Monarch's executives, their habits, their families, their vulnerabilities. Implement executive protection protocols, he instructed. Security details for all targeted individuals, residence sweeps, travel monitoring. The morning dissolved into cascading demands, coordinating with law enforcement, establishing protection rotations, briefing anxious executives on safety procedures. Jack's phone buzzed repeatedly, with Lily's school updates, each notification a reminder of commitments increasingly at risk. By 11 o'clock, the immediate response framework was established. Protective details had deployed residences, secured communication protocols implemented. The crisis had stabilized into manageable parameters until Jack received an urgent summons to Elaine's office. He found her reviewing security footage with Kevin, expressions grim as they studied something on the main display. Without speaking, Kevin gestured toward the screen. The video showed Elaine's private parking garage beneath her Manhattan residence. A maintenance worker moved purposefully between vehicles, stopping at her personal car. The timestamp indicated 3:14 a.m., when standard building security would be minimally staffed. Tracking device, Kevin explained, highlighting a small object attached beneath the rear wheel well. Sophisticated model with extended battery life and remote access capabilities. Our sweep team found it an hour ago during resident security checks. The implication was clear. Someone had been monitoring Elaine's movements, tracking her patterns between work and home. The garage required security access that ordinary infiltrators shouldn't possess. Building management confirms no scheduled maintenance during that time frame. Kevin continued, the uniform is legitimate, but the worker isn't on their employment roster. Jack studied the footage more closely, professional assessment, cutting through immediate concern. Look at his movement patterns. That's not an amateur. Military or law enforcement background, likely specialized training. The positioning is precise, the timing efficient. Professional surveillance, Elaine concluded, her voice steady despite the evident violation. Jack nodded grimly. Atlas is escalating beyond corporate tactics. They're employing professional operatives with specialized skills. This crosses the line from business competition to personal targeting. The discovery necessitated immediate response adjustment. Jack established a dedicated protective detail for Elaine-enhanced resident security and implemented counter-surveillance protocols for all her movements. By noon, operational demands had expanded beyond initial projections. Jack checked his watch with growing concern. Lily's dismissal was in 90 minutes, and the security situation continued evolving in ways that demanded his expertise. Elaine found him in the Security Operations Center, reviewing protective deployment patterns. She assessed the tactical displays with the same analytical precision she brought to corporate strategy. You're supposed to be leaving soon, she observed, gesturing toward the time. For Lily's early dismissal, Jack nodded, frustration evident despite professional control. Working on transitional handoff now. Sarah can manage the implementation, but these targeted threats change our response parameters. Elaine studied him with unexpected intensity. When does she need to be picked up? 1:30. I can have a car service. No. Elaine's interruption carried firm decision. You're picking her up personally. Sarah is fully capable of managing security operations for 3 hours. These aren't ordinary threats, Jack countered. They've escalated to personal surveillance and intimidation. And they'll continue escalating tomorrow and the day after. Elaine's voice softened slightly. Jack, I've sacrificed personal commitments for professional crises more times than I can count. Looking back, I regret every single one. Don't make the same mistake. The simple directive carried the weight of lived experience, lessons learned through similar choices with different outcomes. Jack recognized the wisdom beneath the instruction. Thank you, he acknowledged. I'll complete the operational handover to Sarah before I leave. At precisely 1 o'clock, Jack departed Monarch Tower, tactical focus, shifting from corporate security to parental responsibility. He navigated midday Manhattan traffic with practiced efficiency, arriving at Lily's school with minutes to spare. Children streamed from the building in chaotic enthusiasm, freed from academic structure for an unexpected afternoon. Lily emerged in animated conversation with 2 classmates, backpack festooned with new ocean-themed keychains, a growing collection that charted her evolving interests. Her face brightened upon spotting Jack waiting by the school gate. She raced toward him with unrestrained joy, launching into his arms with complete trust that he would catch her. You came, simple words that carried profound meaning. In Lily's 7 years, she had learned that sometimes duties took parents away from promises. Military deployments, emergency call-outs, work. Crises all had occasionally superseded personal commitments. Of course I came, sweetheart. Jack held her close, inhaling the scent of school supplies and playground adventures. We have the whole afternoon. Can we go to the museum you promised last weekend, but then the bad guys tried to steal Ms. Elaine's company and you had to work? The simplified understanding of corporate espionage brought unexpected perspective. Through Lily's eyes, the complex security crisis, reduced to its essential truth, bad guys trying to take what wasn't theirs, good guys protecting what mattered. The museum it is, Jack agreed. Blue whale exhibit first. Lily nodded enthusiastically. Ms. Elaine said it's bigger than our whole apartment, and she said there's a special show about deep ocean exploration this month with videos of real underwater volcanoes. The casual mention of Elaine sparked curiosity. You've been talking with Ms. Elaine about the museum. She visits during lunch sometimes. She knows everything about oceans because she studied ocean chemistry before she became a company boss. She said her dad took her to the same museum when she was my age. The revelation painted Elaine in yet another unexpected light, not just making time for a child amid corporate crisis, but sharing personal history and genuine interests beyond professional obligation. The Museum of Natural History hummed with midweek activity school groups and tourists navigating vast halls of scientific wonder. Jack purchased tickets, including the special Deep Ocean exhibition Lily had mentioned. The Milstein Hall of Ocean Life unfurled before them in breathtaking scale, the massive blue whale model suspended from the ceiling in frozen majesty. Lily stood transfixed, neck craned backward, eyes wide with wonder. "It's so big," she whispered, voice hushed with reverence. Jack watched her expression, treasuring the moment of pure discovery. In a life marked by loss and adjustment, these instances of uncomplicated joy became anchors, memories that sustained through difficult transitions and uncertain futures. They explored the hall methodically, Lily absorbing information about marine ecosystems with insatiable curiosity. Jack found himself learning alongside her details of ocean depths and creatures, expanding his own understanding beyond tactical assessments of underwater terrain. The special exhibition on deep ocean exploration captured Lily's attention completely. Interactive displays allowed visitors to manipulate robotic exploration vehicles like those used by research scientists navigating simulated hydrothermal vents in abyssal trenches. "Look, Daddy," Lily pointed excitedly to a section on bioluminescence. "The animals make their own light because it's too dark for sunlight to reach them. They adapted." Jack nodded, drawing unexpected parallels to security operations, adaptation to hostile environments, developing capabilities specific to challenging conditions. Nature had perfected resilient strategies long before human systems attempted similar evolution. As afternoon faded toward evening, they completed their museum exploration with ice cream from the cafe. Lily recounted her favorite exhibits in animated detail, knowledge already integrating into her expanding worldview. "Can we come back sometime with Ms. Elaine?" Lily asked between spoonfuls of chocolate ice cream. "She knows all about the special deep parts that aren't even in the exhibits." The innocent question carried implications Jack wasn't fully prepared to address. "Maybe someday. Ms. Elaine is very busy running her company." "She said busy people still need museum days," Lily countered with child's logic. "She said her dad was super busy too, but he always made time for important things." Another glimpse into Elaine's personal philosophy filtered through conversations with a 7-year-old. Jack found himself curious about these interactions. What other wisdom had been exchanged during lunch visits and child care center discussions? His phone vibrated with a security update from Sarah. The protection details had been fully implemented, executive residences secured, and threat assessment protocols established. The message ended with simple reassurance: everything under control. Enjoy your museum day. The brief text offered rare professional freedom, permission to remain fully present in personal moments without operational distraction. Jack tucked the phone away, recommitting to the afternoon's true priority. They left the museum as closing time approached. Stepping into early evening Manhattan bathed in golden light, Lily's energy remained undiminished. Museum discoveries, fueling animated commentary about potential ocean exploration careers. "Can we get pizza for dinner?" she asked as they navigated crowded sidewalks. "The kind with the really good cheese from the place near our apartment." "Perfect plan," Jack agreed, guiding her toward the subway entrance. Public transit offered Lily's preferred adventure, the rumbling journey beneath city streets, emerging into different neighborhoods as if by magic. As they waited for their train, Jack's security instincts activated. A man further down the platform caught his attention, nothing obvious but subtle indicators triggering professional assessment. The stance slightly too alert positioning that offered optimal sight lines, attention patterns that didn't match normal commuter behavior. Jack adjusted their position casually, placing himself between Lily and the potential observer. Years of counterintelligence training had ingrained methods for confirming surveillance without alerting watchers. When their train arrived, Jack guided Lily aboard, then deliberately hesitated at the last moment as if forgetting something. The observer reacted with microsecond adjustment, confirming Jack's suspicion. They were being followed. The revelation triggered immediate tactical planning. Jack's mind raced through potential responses while maintaining outward calm. Directly confronting the watcher risked escalation with Lily present. Standard evasion techniques would be difficult with a child in tow. Calling for backup might accelerate whatever scenario was unfolding. Lily's slight change of plans, Jack said conversationally as the train pulled away from the station. We're going to play a game on our way home. Lily looked up with interest. What kind of game? It's called Secret Agents. We're going to take a special route home, and you need to follow my instructions exactly. Think of it like a spy mission. The framing worked perfectly. Lily's eyes widened with excitement rather than fear. The potential threat transformed into adventure through a child's perspective. They exited at the next station, Jack guiding them through practiced evasion techniques disguised as game elements. Quick through this passage, secret agents always change directions. The watcher followed at practiced distance, maintaining surveillance without obvious pursuit. Jack noted professional technique in the man's movements. This wasn't an amateur, but someone with specialized training. 3 subway changes and strategic surface-level detours. Later, Jack confirmed they had successfully broken the surveillance tail. The operative had maintained pursuit longer than an ordinary follower could manage, but eventually lost their trail in a crowded transit hub. By the time they reached their neighborhood pizza restaurant, the security situation had been neutralized without Lily ever recognizing potential danger. She remained delighted with their secret agent game, declaring it should become regular practice. Over pepperoni pizza, Lily shared more about her school day and upcoming projects. The simple normality provided sharp contrast to corporate infiltrations and security breaches, a reminder of what truly mattered beyond professional responsibilities. Jack's phone vibrated with a taste from an unknown number. He opened it cautiously, security training anticipating potential threat. Heard you visited the Blue Whale today. Some threats are worth interrupting museum trips to address. Others can wait until tomorrow. Glad you prioritized correctly. E. The message from Elaine carried layers of meaning beyond its simple text. Acknowledgement of surveillance detection, confirmation that she'd been briefed on the situation, and approval of his decision to maintain normal activities with Lily despite potential security concerns. Jack typed a brief response. Museum day was perfect. Lily wants you to join next time, says, the secret deep part's not in the exhibits. The reply came moments later. It would be my pleasure. Some knowledge only matters when shared. As evening settled over New York, Jack and Lily walked the final blocks to their apartment. Her small hand held his with complete trust, secure in the knowledge that he would keep her safe regardless of circumstances. Their building's security system had been upgraded the previous week. Jack's professional expertise applied to personal protection. Biometric access, enhanced monitoring, and direct connection to emergency response provided layered safeguards without creating an obvious fortress. Inside their apartment offered modest comfort rather than luxury. Military habits of simplicity and functionality shaped the space, though Lily's influence added color and imagination to otherwise practical rooms. Ocean-themed decorations had gradually replaced military memorabilia, marking the transition from warrior to father. Bedtime routines unfolded with practiced familiarity. Bath pajamas, toothbrushing, and the essential bedtime story, currently an illustrated book about marine biologists that Elaine had recommended. Jack read each page with deliberate attention, watching knowledge and imagination blend in Lily's expressions. "Daddy," she asked as he closed the book, sleep already softening her voice, "are the bad people still trying to steal Ms. Elaine's company?" The question emerged from nowhere, revealing that children absorbed more than adults recognized. Some people are trying to stop her company from making important inventions, but we're protecting it. Like you protected people in the Navy, Jack considered his response carefully. Similar in some ways, both involve keeping good people safe while they do important work. Is Ms. Elaine important? Very important. She's creating technology that could help the whole world. Lily nodded sagely, processing this information with 7-year-old seriousness. That's why you have to work so much, because important things need protection. The simple understanding carried profound insight. Jack smoothed her hair gently. Yes, but you're the most important of all. That's why I made sure to be at school today, even though work was busy. I know, Lily murmured, eyes drifting closed. You always come when it really matters. The trust in her voice struck deeper than any commendation or medal. Jack remained beside her until steady breathing confirmed sleep had claimed her, the peaceful vulnerability of childhood momentarily shielded from the world's harsher realities. Once Lily was settled, Jack activated his secure tablet, reviewing the day's security developments. Sarah had managed operations, effectively implementing protocols while addressing emerging concerns. The protective details reported no additional incidents, though surveillance detection teams had identified potential observers near two executive residences. His phone vibrated with a direct call from Elaine, unusual given the late hour. Sorry to disturb your evening, she began without preamble, but we've received communication from Atlas Global. They're requesting a private meeting tomorrow. Jack's security instincts immediately activated. What kind of meeting? Their CEO, Richard Blackwood, wants to discuss mutual business interests away from corporate headquarters or public venues. He suggested the Metropolitan Museum's rooftop garden noon tomorrow. The location choice wasn't random. Public enough to discourage obvious confrontation, private enough for confidential conversation, and difficult to secure comprehensively given its open design and multiple access points. It's a security risk, Jack assessed immediately. Uncontrolled environment, limited advanced preparation, potential for surveillance or confrontation. I understand the concerns, Elaine acknowledged, but diplomatically refusing direct communication from a CEO of Blackwood's stature creates its own problems. The business community notices such things. Perception matters. The fundamental tension between security and operational necessity emerged once again. Jack recognized that corporate leadership sometimes required calculated risk, engaging potential adversaries to understand their position or seek resolution. If you're determined to meet him, we implement full protective protocols, Jack stipulated. Advanced team secures the location counter-surveillance measures throughout communication monitoring in direct protective detail with you at all times. Agreed, Elaine replied without hesitation. But keep it subtle. This needs to appear as a casual business meeting, not a security operation. The following morning brought focused preparation. Jack coordinated with Sarah to establish comprehensive security for the Metropolitan Museum meeting while maintaining regular protection at Monarch Tower. Advanced team reports location secured, Sarah confirmed as they reviewed tactical positioning. Counter-surveillance units in place, communication monitoring, active emergency response protocols established. Jack studied the rooftop garden layout on a security tablet. The space offered spectacular Central Park views, but presented multiple security challenges. Limited access control, numerous potential observation points, and restricted emergency evacuation options. Maintain visual contact at all times, he instructed the protective detail. Position assets at all entry points. I'll handle close protection personally. At precisely 11:30, Jack accompanied Elaine from Monarch Tower to the waiting executive vehicle. She had dressed strategically for the meeting, professional navy suit projecting authority without ostentation, minimal jewelry that wouldn't impede movement if necessary, low-heeled shoes practical for rapid transit if required. Atlas stock dropped 12% after our Palmer project announcement, she noted as they navigated midday traffic. Their board is pressuring Blackwood for immediate countermeasures. This meeting could be damage control rather than aggression. Or it could be assessment for their next attack vector, Jack countered. Gauge your reactions, identify vulnerabilities, establish patterns they can exploit. Elaine nodded thoughtfully. Either way, understanding their position gives us strategic advantage. The Metropolitan Museum rose before them in neoclassical grandeur, Manhattan's cultural fortress housing millennia of human achievement. Jack maintained professional vigilance as they proceeded through the main entrance, security teams confirming position through discrete communication channels. The rooftop garden offered spring sunshine and panoramic views, flowering plants, softening the urban landscape spread below. Security personnel positioned throughout the space maintained casual appearances while establishing protective coverage. Richard Blackwood waited at a corner table, Manhattan's iconic skyline framing his silhouette. At 62, the Atlas Global CEO embodied old-world energy dominance, silver-haired, immaculately tailored, with the practiced charm of someone accustomed to wielding influence through personality as much as position. Ms. Monarch, Blackwood stood as they approached, extending his hand with practiced cordiality. Thank you for agreeing to this somewhat unconventional meeting. Elaine accepted this handshake with professional courtesy, while Jack positioned himself at optimal protective distance, close enough for immediate intervention, far enough for conversational privacy. When a competitor escalates from corporate espionage to physical sabotage, unconventional seems appropriate, Elaine replied evenly, taking the seat across from Blackwood. The Atlas CEO's expression remained unruffled, though his eyes flicked briefly toward Jack with evaluative assessment. Unfortunate events. Rogue employees making unauthorized decisions, as I'm sure you understand from your own recent experiences with insider threats. The deflection came straight from crisis management. Playbooks acknowledge incidents while establishing plausible deniability for executive involvement. Jack had heard similar justifications from warlords disclaiming responsibility for actions carried out by their direct subordinates. Curious how those rogue employees possess detailed knowledge of our security systems, research facilities, and executive movements, Elaine observed mildly, almost as if they received professional intelligence support. Blackwood spread his hands in a gesture of conciliation. The energy sector has always been competitive, perhaps excessively so at times. But there are limits to productive conflict. That's precisely why I wanted this conversation. I'm listening. The Palmer Project represents remarkable innovation. Blackwood began his tone shifting to business-like appreciation. Revolutionary technology with global implications, but market disruption of that magnitude creates economic instability that benefits no one. Progress often disrupts established patterns, Elaine countered. That's not justification for corporate sabotage. Agreed completely. Blackwood leaned forward slightly, which is why I'm proposing partnership rather than competition. Atlas Global's distribution infrastructure combined with the Monarch's technology could transform global energy systems without destabilizing existing economies. The proposal hung between them an unexpected pivot from confrontation to collaboration. Jack maintained security vigilance while assessing the conversation's strategic implications. Was this genuine recalibration or sophisticated manipulation? You're suggesting a joint venture, Elaine clarified, professional interest engaged, despite evident skepticism. I'm suggesting we combine strengths rather than exploit weaknesses, Blackwood replied. Atlas controls energy distribution networks across 47 countries. Monarch holds transformative storage technology. Together, we could implement controlled transition toward renewable infrastructure while maintaining economic stability. The offer carried surface logic that masked deeper implications. Jack recognized the approach from counterinsurgency operations. When direct conflict proved unsuccessful, adversaries often sought partnership that provided internal access and gradual control. Controlled by whom? Elaine asked, cutting to the essential question. Atlas has actively fought against renewable energy adoption for decades. Your company funded climate disinformation campaigns as recently as last year. Blackwood's expression tightened momentarily before professional composure returned. Corporate positions evolve based on market realities. The Palmer Project changes those realities. I'm offering adaptation rather than obstruction. Jack noted subtle shifts in Blackwood's body language, increased tension in shoulder positioning, micro-expressions suggesting frustration beneath diplomatic veneer. The offer wasn't achieving its intended effect. An interesting proposition, Elaine acknowledged neutrally. I'll need to review with my board before providing substantive response. Of course. Blackwood produced a small data drive, sliding it across the table. This contains our preliminary partnership framework. Revenue projections, integration timelines, market transition strategies. Consider it a starting point for discussion. Elaine regarded the drive without touching it, security protocols regarding external electronic devices clearly front of mind. I'll have our legal team contact yours to establish secure information exchange channels. Blackwood's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. The refusal to accept the drive directly represented minor but meaningful rejection. The first move declined in a complex negotiation game. As you wish. He retrieved the device smoothly. Though I should mention timing considerations. Our board meets next Wednesday to finalize strategic direction. Decisions made there will determine Atlas's approach moving forward, either collaborative partnership or alternative competitive strategies. The implicit threat beneath diplomatic phrasing hung in the spring air. Jack maintained careful visual scanning of their surroundings while monitoring the conversation's escalating subtext. Ultimatums rarely facilitate productive negotiation. Elaine observed, rising from her seat with practiced grace that signaled conversation's end. I appreciate the outreach, Mr. Blackwood. We'll be in touch through appropriate channels. The Atlas CEO stood as well, corporate courtesy masking evident frustration at the meeting's outcome. I hope you'll consider the broader implications, Ms. Monarch. Energy transitions affect millions of lives. Managed evolution prevents unnecessary disruption. I consider human impact in everything Monarch does, Elaine replied, genuine conviction underlying professional tone. Which is precisely why we're committed to making clean energy accessible without artificial constraints or controlled scarcity. With diplomatic closure established, Jack guided their departure through pre-established security routes. The protective detail maintained position until Elaine was safely in the executive vehicle, Manhattan traffic creating natural buffer between potential threats and protected principle. That wasn't a partnership offer, Jack observed once privacy was established. It was a controlled acquisition attempt. Get inside your operation, access your technology, then gradually assume control. Elaine nodded, professional mask dropping to reveal analytical focus. Standard Atlas playbook. They've absorbed 6 competitors that way in the past decade. Initial collaboration followed by integration challenges, culminating in leadership replacement for streamlined operations. You never intended to accept. I intended to understand, she corrected. Know your adversary's position before engaging. Now we understand their strategic assessment. They recognize they can't stop the technology through conventional means, so they're attempting absorption instead. The insight revealed Elaine's tactical sophistication beyond corporate leadership. She had approached the meeting as intelligence gathering rather than negotiation, extracting valuable strategic information while revealing nothing substantive in return. The timing threat is concerning, Jack noted. Next Wednesday deadline suggests they've prepared alternative measures if partnership fails. Agreed, we should anticipate escalation. Elaine's expression revealed determination rather than alarm. Security protocols remain at maximum level, and we accelerate the Palmer Project commercial partnerships. Once the technology is broadly licensed, Atlas loses leverage for acquisition. They return to Monarch Tower amid afternoon bustle, Manhattan's commercial rhythm continuing despite corporate warfare conducted in museum gardens and executive boardrooms. The security team reported no additional incidents, though surveillance detection units had identified potential observers monitoring the meeting from distance. As Jack completed post-meeting security assessments, his phone displayed a message from Lily's school. The simple calendar reminder carried unexpected weight amid corporate conflict and security operations. Parent-teacher conference, Thursday, 4 p.m. The ordinary milestone of childhood education contrasted sharply with extraordinary security challenges. Jack added the appointment to his schedule without hesitation. Professional responsibilities adjusting around personal commitment rather than superseding it. Sarah appeared at his office door, tablet in hand, with updated threat assessments. FBI analysis confirms the surveillance operative from yesterday matches description of known Atlas security contractor. They're escalating personal monitoring beyond corporate targets. Jack nodded the confirmation, validating his tactical assessment from the museum surveillance detection. Implement counter-surveillance protocols for all executive movement, and add my residents to the protection rotation. If they're monitoring personal activities, we need to assume comprehensive targeting. The evening brought methodical security implementation, protective measures extending from corporate assets to personal environments. Jack coordinated with federal authorities to establish information sharing protocols, ensuring cohesive response to evolving threats. As operational demands stabilized, he completed final briefings and prepared to depart. The digital security dashboard showed all systems at protected status, monitoring active defensive measures engaged. He found Elaine in her office reviewing commercial partnership proposals for the Palmer Project. The accelerated timeline had created intensive workload, Yet she maintained focused engagement despite the day's confrontational meeting. Security protocols updated and implemented, Jack reported. Residence protection established counter-surveillance measures, active communication channels secured. Elaine looked up from her work weariness momentarily visible beneath professional composure. Thank you for everything today. Just doing my job. No. She shook her head slightly. You're doing far more than professional obligation requires. Managing corporate security while navigating personal threats and still maintaining commitments to Lily, that's extraordinary balance few achieve. The acknowledgement carried understanding beyond professional courtesy, recognition of the complex integration of security expertise and personal responsibility that defined his current life. Speaking of Lily, Elaine continued, she mentioned your apartment building has a rooftop garden where you sometimes watch stars. Is that secured within your protection protocols? The question reflected genuine concern rather than professional oversight. Jack nodded, appreciating the thoughtfulness behind the inquiry. Full coverage established. Residence team maintains perimeter security, including rooftop access. Good. Relief softened her features momentarily. Children should have stargazing without security concerns intruding. The simple statement revealed values beyond corporate leadership recognition that childhood wonder deserved protection as much as intellectual property or market position. As darkness settled over Manhattan, Jack departed Monarch Tower with security systems stabilized and protective measures implemented. The evening commuters streamed toward homes and families, ordinary lives continuing amid extraordinary corporate conflict. He collected Lily from after-school care, her enthusiastic greeting temporarily displacing security assessments and threat mitigation strategies. For these precious hours, he could be fully present as father rather than security director, building Lego ocean scenes, reviewing homework assignments, and listening to elaborate stories about playground adventures. Later, as Manhattan lights illuminated the night sky, they ventured to the building's rooftop garden. Security measures remained active but discreet, allowing Lily's experience to remain uncomplicated by adult concerns. Look, Daddy, she pointed excitedly toward visible constellations. That's Orion. We learned about it in science class. The stars are actually super far apart, but they look like they make a picture from Earth. Jack nodded, appreciating the simple wonder in her observation. Perspective changes everything. Things that seem connected might be separated by incredible distance. Like you when you were in the Navy, Lily asked with unexpected insight. You seemed far away, but you were still connected to me. The innocent question carried profound understanding beyond her years. Exactly like that. No matter how far apart we might be, we're always connected. Lily considered this with serious concentration. Is that why you and Ms. Elaine work so hard to protect her company? Because it's connected to important things. It is, Jack acknowledged, curiosity piqued by her reasoning. The technology they've created could help millions of people. Why do you ask? She told me that's why you're both so busy sometimes, because you're protecting something bigger than just one company. She said it's like protecting the whole ocean, not just one fish. Another glimpse of conversations between Elaine and Lily, wisdom shared between CEO and child that revealed values beneath corporate leadership. The analogy perfectly captured the broader implications of the Palmer Project beyond market position or corporate success. As stars wheeled overhead, Jack recognized evolving understanding in his own perspective. The security operation had begun as professional assignment, protect assets, mitigate threats, implement protocols. It had transformed into something more meaningful, defending innovation that offered genuine improvement for global challenges, protecting people committed to positive change rather than merely corporate interests. Lily yawned beside him, childish stamina finally yielding to bedtime necessity. They descended from the rooftop to their apartment security systems, maintaining vigilant protection without intruding on domestic tranquility. Tucking Lily into bed, Jack recognized profound gratitude amid ongoing challenges. Despite corporate espionage, personal surveillance, and professional demands, these moments remain possible. Bedtime stories, museum adventures, rooftop stargazing with a child, whose understanding continued evolving with each experience. Daddy, Lily murmured sleepily, are you going to marry Ms. Elaine someday? The unexpected question momentarily derailed his composed parental presence. What makes you ask that? Because you both work really hard protecting important things, and you both know about oceans, and she makes you smile differently than other people. Children's perceptions unfiltered by adult complications, seeing patterns adults often missed in their own behaviors. Ms. Elaine and I work together, Jack explained carefully. We're friends who respect each other's work. Mm-hmm, Lily acknowledged with sleepy skepticism. That's what Princess Jasmine said about Aladdin at first, too. The Disney reference made Jack smile despite himself. Good night, sweetheart. Sweet dreams about ocean adventures. As Lily drifted towards sleep, Jack completed final security checks. Protective details reported all systems functioning, surveillance detection teams noted no unusual activity, and monitoring protocols remained active throughout secured locations. His phone displayed a final message for the day from Elaine rather than security and operations. Partnership offers from 3 major utilities confirmed. Palmer project implementation beginning next month. What we're protecting is becoming reality. Thank you for making it possible. The simple acknowledgement carried profound meaning recognition that security operations had preserved something valuable beyond corporate assets or market position. They had protected innovation that offered genuine improvement for global challenges, defended the possibility of positive change against those who would prevent it for profit or power. As Manhattan settled into nighttime rhythm, Jack Harlow found rare moment of certainty amid ongoing security challenges. The mission had evolved beyond professional assignment to personal conviction, protecting people, and possibilities that offer genuine value in an uncertain world. Tomorrow would bring new threats, adaptive adversaries, and continuing challenges, balancing professional responsibility with personal commitment. But tonight had confirmed the purpose behind those efforts, protecting innovation that might improve countless lives, preserving childhood wonder amid adult complexities, and defending the fundamental belief that positive change remained possible despite powerful opposition.